I'm already live playing the banjo. What's happening? What? What's
Nothing.
happening?
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Just
What's up?
nothing. What's that?
I hear kids in the background. Do we need to
Oh,
call Tim Ballard to come save them?
I think he probably just needs to go to bed.
No, I don't. No, I do not. Oh, how do I get it off?
Had a really fun work emergency last night, so I had to get called out to work at 10 in the evening, and then I got back home at 1:30 in the morning, and then woke up at 4 in the morning to go back to work. So
Nuh-uh.
yeah,
Ouch.
that was overtime, so that was nice.
How many wrestlings do one church have? I've been playing banjo like 5 years. I've been playing the guitar. What? How old am I? I've been playing over 30 years. That's kind of pathetic.
I know. I don't like telling people how long I've been playing the guitar because I should be really good at it.
I get better and better, but still not the best. 30 years. Do you remember like at the start of playing guitar where you're like, as soon as I get to 2 years, I can tell people I've been playing 2 years. That'll be something.
I remember we had this like, I don't know. My wife thought I was like really, really, really good at guitar because what happened is that when we met, she's like, "Oh, do you play guitar?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And she's like, "Are you good at it?" And I was like, "I'm okay. I should be better than I am, but I'm okay." And so she tells the story that like she really thought that she's like, when we hang out, I'll show him up. I'll show him how much better at guitar I am than him. But then like she just knew how like to play 4 chord songs really.
Yeah.
So she, anyway, I guess that sounds braggy. I don't know. Whatever.
Oh, look at this. Upcoming Mormon Stories with Lindsay Hansen Park. What you should have learned about LDS polygamy. Just announced it. Oh, and there's a double live stream, 2 more updates scheduled for 9/21. What's that? Tomorrow or today? Today?
That's today.
They're gonna go live. They're gonna stream snipe us again in half an hour.
Those bastards.
Those sons of biznitches. Oh, we're gonna have to check it out live. Maybe we're gonna have to fact check live.
Hell yeah.
Kevin and Clip both said they're coming, but probably late. So we should just get to the cracking.
I suppose so.
Mormons at Night will be on tonight. Are they going to be covering more Ballardy stuff? The Ballards. There's so many
Mormons After Dark. After Hours.
They are called Ward
Radio. I don't know. They should have stuck with the Mormon thing.
Cardin's explained it a few times.
I listened to him explain it, and I get it. He says he doesn't like it, and it's an act of faith or whatever. But I don't know. I know that I would have stuck on that if I was still Mormon when that thing happened. I'd be like, nope, that's fucking stupid, man.
Man, it feels like I get updates on this stuff by the second.
The Ballard stuff?
Yeah. And at the same time, too, none of them are updates. Nothing's new, but it's constantly new. I listen to the Vice people talk on John DeLynn as well. Got some thoughts.
Yeah.
Vice so listen to Ward Radio, lowered his IQ 40 points.
Oh man, so they I listened to a bunch of the RFM ones briefly because I've been very averse to listening to any of this Ballard shit because I'm like, I don't know, I don't trust anybody. I don't like because the people that love him aren't really gonna. I don't trust him, to be honest. But then you get to I don't know. You go to Delin, because the stuff I heard on Ballard before was from Delin and Lynn Packer, and they were all saying, like, basically their biggest criticism was that, well, he should be focusing his attention elsewhere. Like,
That
he's not
Ballard
looking
should.
at the. Yeah, it was basically they're saying that, like, he's not looking at um child predators in the Mormon church. That's where he should be looking. Like, okay, like, we could play this game all day because he should be looking at child predators not in the Mormon church, but in the school system. Why isn't he? Anyway,
So
it's
do
the
you
point.
really need a recap of who Ballard is? I was thinking we didn't need to like probably touch up on it with anybody. We might need to. Flip probably needs some filling in, although he's been reading and watching along whenever he gets here. But Kevin's been following it. This is I don't know. Should we start talking it right away or wait for those guys to get here?
I mean, we can give
Um,
the recap. We can just, like, Ballard. Tim
I,
Ballard is the guy that was in charge of that Operation Underground Railroad. He was that movie Sound of Freedom was about him, and then after that came out, every ex-Mormon in the world hated him because I don't
post
know,
Yeah, I guess.
and now they're feeling vindicated because there's some bunch of stuff coming out about him. I do like RFM's coverage of him because I don't know. I I trust RFM to not be as clearly biased as the rest of them. I don't know. The rest of them seem to be excited that terrible things are happening.
Well, if you look at the Ward Radio, what they're going to be talking about is Tim Ballard updates, and they've been going over it for weeks and weeks and weeks here. But everything just hit this last week. Probably another Amber Heard trash situation. Yeah, I mean, I've seen like major channels cover it. I saw Honey Badgers cover it. I just watched Tim Pool cover it. I just watched everybody cover it for a little bit. Although people outside of this world have a bit of a quicker take on it. Of course, different sides of the politics. Some of them are going to say, oh, this guy's for sure getting trashed. And the other side's going to say, this guy's for sure trash. And RFM has been covering it pretty well. I'd actually also give credit to John DeLynn for being pretty fair in general on it as he's covering it. I don't think the Vice people are particularly fair, but that's something we'll get into later. But they try to come off as the most stringent, honest journalists in history, which that's totally Vice, man.
Calm down,
Totally
fuckers. You're from Vice. Go write an op-ed about how I should start putting more stuff in my fucking butt.
We're restrained by ethical standards and journalism, like as if that's been a thing for 20 years. It's so funny because I went to school. I have an undergraduate in public relations and an undergraduate in Spanish, and then grad school was Spanish. But in public relations is communications, so some of it you have to take is mass communications type classes. And 20 years ago, everything was about working on removing your bias from a story, and you'd have to put all this effort in removing your bias from the story. And like within 5 years, like I graduated in undergrad like 03 or something like that. Within 5 years, that was out the door. And sometimes you can blame Fox News for it, but everybody took the Fox News angle that we're all just going to get past the concept that we're trying to be neutral in any way. And it's really funny to hear Vice News that have been extremely, I don't call them journalists, they're activists. And them coming on the show and being like, well, we have our journalistic integrity and we have to do this and that. And you guys don't know how the journalism world works. And we won't report this without 100% verification on this or that or the other. And you're like, yeah, whatever. The way you guys also frame it is full of crap. And that's something you could have said throughout all history, is just framing is where stuff gets totally bullshit. But that all said, I don't think Tim Ballard's that squeaky clean in any way, shape, or form. But I wouldn't go be a part of that thing. But at the same time, too, don't think it's as seedy as Vice would like it to be. So
Yeah, they were.
there's
So Harambe Boy here mentioned a video that I love, and you should put it. It's just a 30-second video that I put it in the chat. The StreamYard.
Can you put it? Can you share it on the StreamYard? Let me see if I can. Here, I'll pull it. Oh, nice. Yeah.
I forgot about this one. He mentioned it.
We'll pull it up. Did we show it? We might have shared this one before. Present, share.
It's an old one, but I love it.
You hear it?
Yeah.
You hearing it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the soy right on the counter there.
In a sippy cup.
That's totally true.
I love that.
Fantastic.
I keep getting a pot that one keeps coming back up of how to have sex with a fat woman. As the most unflattering art.
Says this stuff is going to keep happening because of the wonderful American parents that we've had for the past 30 years. It landed on Ballard. Yeah, the dildo like smacked him right in the face. I saw some pea milk for sale this week. What?
What the fuck?
That's not soy enough for.
Wait until they start making like cricket milk. Drink the bug.
It's coming. Well, didn't Robert Downey Jr. do
push like cricket protein powder?
Yeah.
He looks
close.
like he's going through chemo right now.
So does everybody on the soy, man. So I guess Simon Gruber's asking, so Tim Ballard, I guess the church came out and denounced him, and they said in some PR response to Vice, because Vice was pressuring them for some sort of response to things that they had looked up in previous investigations on him. One was an investigation it was like an actual district attorney investigation. It was some open government investigation. And then there was an internal investigation brought by a single anonymous sex harassment claim bringer for OUR, for Operation Underground Railroad. They supposedly, through Freedom of Information Act, got a hold of some stuff, some of it which we know, but there's a bunch of people acting like there's probably something more clear or more specific that the church even has, or things inside of that investigation. But they've leaked a lot of what it was. That investigation brought no charges. It brought nothing. It was closed without any charges, but of course you couldn't see the details of it. The details of that investigation is being released in 10 days-ish or something like that. So we should all be able to see whatever extra seedy stuff they found that they still didn't press charges on. And believe all women. Yep. And then that other one is just a sex harassment claim. So the stuff that we do know coming out of that is supposedly some of the women said that they would do this thing called a couple's ruse when they were putting it on for the when they were going and taking on these whatever rings that they were going out. And a lot of the criticism that you'll see brought up against them is that their very presence was what was drumming up the demand for the kiddie porn there. Like there was no, or not kiddie porn, the sex, whatever, the sex ring.
Well, they make it sound like Ballard would go in and be like, "Hey, go kidnap me a 14-year-old right now so that I can save her."
Yeah, so some of it would have some of that complaints people get against like Chris Hansen, and it's why Chris Hansen's stuff never stuck, because they kind of call it like, hey, you were entrapping these people. You were the ones who honeypotted them into it. You were the ones who created the demand for it. Then on top of that, in those ones, none of the charges would ever stick because there was never actually any underage people involved in it. The people involved in the thing were of age. So you could say, well, that technically wasn't soliciting a minor because you never solicited a minor. You solicited an adult pretending to be a minor. And everything Chris Hansen ever did, none of it ever stuck legally.
Some of it stuck. There was that one investigation that was blown apart in Texas where, like, absolutely everything was dismissed just because, there was that guy that they caught, like a high-ranking political figure, and he ended up killing himself in like a standoff with the police, and that kind of screwed up that entire investigation. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I'm running on 2 hours of sleep.
Not acceptable when kids' lives are on the line.
Yeah.
So there's Marty saying Ballard was done without the sexual harassment claims. Yeah, so
probably.
he left OUR. People assume it's around those sexual harassment claims. Anyway, those sexual harassment claims, what we have so far is, and this was described by Quick on Midnight Mormons a little bit and a little bit on his channel, that under that couple's ruse, that was one of the ways that they came up with stuff, that if they were going into these seedy places, they could get out of doing anything because you'd have like your wife there who was like going to be some sort of a firebrand and say, no, he's not doing any of that cocaine tonight, or no, he can't do that right now. That's the couple's ruse that they put on, is like you would go in with a couple because being there with your wife, she was the one who would keep you in line even though you wanted to do stuff. You're like, hey, how about this? How about that? And then the wife would be like, no, he can't do that. No, he's not allowed to do that. And anyway, in those setups, they would still have to do stuff supposedly to make it seem like they were legitimately seedy people. Yeah, he can't do that. He has to go shower with me tonight.
Like
Yeah.
the way that they were explaining it in the videos that I was watching, it was like well, we got to look like a couple. We got to convince them we're a couple, so we better bang in this room tonight, right? Like
that's the way they made it seem. Although nobody's accusing that they were actually banging or stuff. They said
it feels like that South Park episode where the cop wants to. He's the sting operation.
Yeah,
and he ends up just blowing the guys.
Yeah,
and then arresting them.
Which is kind of funny because I was listening to Zelf on the Shelf, and so much of what those guys say, and if you listen to the Vice people and all that stuff, so much of it is like, leave it to the government because the government are the experts and the government does it right. You don't do this. This should be a government thing. The government does it right. And my whole thing with that is like, yeah, right, the government does it right. And yeah, right, the government undercover people don't just fully indulge in that stuff. They don't have some sort of Mormon thing that makes them. I'm not saying they fully indulge in the kids, but I bet you the way a government DA or undercover person does it is they go and, yeah, give me a hooker, give me a hooker, give me a hooker. Okay, I've banged 3 hookers. Now I'll take one of your underage hookers or something like that.
The government has like a 70% membership rate to the Epstein Island, man. That's
yeah.
They'll protect the children.
So these guys had this couple's ruse to supposedly stay up and up with their temple recommends stuff. Supposedly, I mean, it sounds like a good idea if like you were, because I don't know how on earth you would go do this crap. I don't know how on earth you'd go past to somebody and not do some cocaine or not, you know, how does Ballard go undercover since he is pretty well known? I don't know how you would go undercover at all anymore now, but this stuff's been around for a decade.
Yeah, he's been doing this for a while.
And supposedly it's 7 different women. Now, Quick says, and this is one of the things that they don't say in the Vice stuff, he says some of those women who are supposedly the accusers actually back up Tim Ballard, whereas some of the other ones say, no, they've also gone with that anonymous sexual harassment claim person. That's some of the stuff that isn't clear at all. But some of the things that he says that, or they say that happened is, they kind of group these things together, and I think this is kind of some of the seedy framing, is they'd say he'd send a picture of himself in nothing but his underwear and fake tattoos and say, how far are you willing to go
yeah,
to save kids?
I heard that one.
And I would bet you money those things weren't grouped together. Like he probably said that thing in some meeting, and he probably sent the picture of like, haha, look at these tattoos or something like that. One of the things
Master groomer.
Master groomer, and that's another thing that the honey badger say is like, shut up about grooming adult women. Like there's shut up with grooming,
and
you know, like
this huge operation just to groom some women.
to groom adult women. Like shut up with the concept of grooming adults.
That's a whole reason he I only save children to get laid by women that I influence.
But and then on top of that, from what I've seen, is like nobody's actually getting laid either. It's like at best we kind of like lie in bed together and go, we are in bed together. But I don't know. Nobody's made any specific claim. Like they go to these shower rooms. Oh, we're being groomed by Steve Elias right now.
You know, I'm not like a lawyer or anything, but from what I've seen of the court of public opinion, it seems like the legal ramifications of he said, she said are she said right always. So that's what
nobody's like, look at my name. My name is I'm not yet proven innocent. And it's true. I've never been proven innocent. It's never been proven that I'm innocent. And it's never been proven you're innocent. It's never been proven anybody's innocent. So we're all guilty. As they used to say in Stalin's Russia, is like, give me the man, I'll find the crime. But some of the stuff with all of this that's strange to me is none of it looks great. All of it needs extra context. But every single one of them so far under extra context could be justifiable under that couple's ruse stuff, unless they come out with more, like they actually say, and we did bang in that bed, and we did get in that shower and bang in that shower. Nobody said that. They've only said that like they were talking about, we got to make it look like we're showering together, getting these beds together, seem like we're real people in this situation. And I don't know how else they would make it seem like they were real going into bathhouses and these sorts of situations. But I agree with the criticism that like maybe you guys were drumming up the demand in the places that you were going. They have a written description of a video of a booby grab. Yeah, so that's a whole different person though.
Yeah,
and that's what gets kind of weird. Is that guy's name Steve something or other, and that guy actually has separated himself from Tim Ballard, and he's one of the guys going, Tim Ballard's a baddie, and he's the one that they have a transcription of him actually grabbing one of the stripper's breasts. And then after he grabs her breast, they go, wait a minute, I think she's underage. And then they're all joking and laughing about it. Like, oh, geez, was she underage? I don't know if she's underage. Well, we better get an affidavit and see if she was overage. And then they're saying that they have an affidavit that she was overage. But at the same time, too, it's just kind of vague and strange saying like, well, why did he grab her? Like in what world would he need to grab her? Then in one description of it, they say that the guy who runs the place put the guy's hands on the boob. Then in the other situation, they say, no, there's no proof that he didn't just grab her himself or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think it was the investigator wrote on that lie. Like he just like in his notes wrote lie. He wasn't forced to grab the boob. I don't know.
But supposedly there's video of it. So, I mean, people should be able to see the video if it's all being put under question. Now, it's 15 plus years ago. Yeah, that was a long time ago, and it was a whole different guy. And I don't think Tim Ballard was even there on that one. But all the other stuff is just, as far as we know, it's just grooming. But at the same time, too, you can just kind of see like the way that Vice frames it is they're purposely trying to make maybe happened. And maybe this whole entire operation is dumb. You know, I sit there and try to think like, what if us three totally honest guys who hate that stuff in the world, how do we go about addressing this stuff and fighting it? You know what I mean? Do we just grab our recording gear and march on down to Mexico and start like, what do you do? You know, and a lot of the criticisms of this stuff is that they don't have good aftercare. Like if they do save a kid or something like that they're just like, you're saved, bye-bye. And yeah, the Eskimos just want their own Russell Brand, as Blue Meanie says. But then this is such a hard situation. The whole big thing, this to me, this is a great big old fat hairy deal, and it's a big deal to maybe conservative schisms in the Mormon world, possibly, because the way the church denounced them. If you guys watched Midnight Mormons the other night, like there's not one of Kwaku's been on fire. Critical of the church and the way that they came down on this.
Yeah, when Delen's praising him, but
Marty says, how am I still learning new stuff? I've spent so much of my life following this stupid thing already. I think I was almost entertained by the thoughtful faith comments. Yeah. Kwaku is on fire about it. Brad Whitbeck is critical of the Mormon church on this.
Glenn Beck was dropping stuff.
Glenn Beck was coming out hard against him. Then you had both Greg and Luke from the BYU Chronicle, Greg Quick and Jacob Hansen, all saying, we do not agree with the way they went about handling this and denouncing this guy publicly without like any sort of private reprimand or something like that. And that's sort of funny because you see Dehlin and RFM starting to sympathize with the guy for that and just saying like, well, we understand that, we get that, we know how that goes. Psychics and that psychic.
The psychic thing, that's the part I don't understand why people aren't mad at the psychic, because like I feel like Tim Ballard for listening to the psychic is dumb at worst. The psychic is fucking evil. She's like leading this dad on for years, thinking that like he's gonna get his kid saved by this psychic, and he's desperate, to get his kid.
If there's people actually getting their jollies off, which so far I haven't heard anything that like, if I put 10 years into this and all I got, and I'm some creepo, and all I got out of it was one day I sort of kind of got to sleep in the same bed of another gal or something, I'd be like, man, I am not doing my creeping wisely. I could creep better than this. But the psychic thing, like when I listen to that psychic thing, I'm like, what are you bananas doing? Like, you guys really believe this stuff? You hand bananas. Like, now I can't like defend you at all because like, what is this? And they put her as like the president of one of the for-profit organizations.
Yeah, making $5,000 a month in consulting fees. If they're like, you know what? Let's ask the ghosts where the kid is.
She produced 10,000 pages worth of psychic readings, dude.
What the fuck?
And that psychic thing to me is one of the most unforgivable parts.
I know. I would like to see some of the transcripts. But like, I'm getting an M or a J. It's like, oh my god, I know somebody named Megan. Like, oh yes, Megan. Megan says hi.
The psychic signifies is like the core of Mormonism. No offense to my hosts here. Personal revelation, etc. Yeah, I mean that could be. Kwaku said the same thing.
I hope when they make the movie about this, that Whoopi Goldberg plays the psychic.
Oh, that'd be good.
No, it'd be Hollywood making it, so Whoopi Goldberg would probably play Nephi.
Yeah, that's true. Kwaku's like, yeah, well, I'm a mystic, man. Why wouldn't you be hitting up a psychic and all that sort of stuff? Like, I told her that's totally justifiable to me. To me, that's the least justifiable part. But one of the things about it that you have to say is, dude believed it, obviously. Like, he wasn't like not believing it. So it wasn't like he was being disingenuous, maybe funneling money to that lady. But I don't know that he has like any sort of like private connection to her or something like that to start pumping money to that goof.
Yeah, I mean, that just sounds like he's a dope. And she's a fucking scam artist.
But
she's a piece of shit. I'll say that. Like, I'm really comfortable calling her a piece of shit.
But I got to come down on this and come down a bit on the side of like Jacob and Quick and all those sorts of guys. And we could maybe even come down on it harder than they're willing to. I don't think the Leviathan of the managerial class of the church gets off easy on this one at all. Like, what in tarnation are you guys doing? Like, what on earth are they doing just putting this answer through Vice and then never clarifying it anywhere else? Just because Vice comes at you.
I don't understand that at all. Why did Vice get the story first? Like, I heard that
coming.
You got to look at the timing too, though, because you listen to anybody else out. Like, I've kind of been trying to take a step back, and obviously, Thoughtful Saints and Latter-day Lobsters is just a shit fest. You know what I mean?
Latter-day Lobsters is loving this.
Yeah, they are.
They're snarky sons of bitches right now.
But anyway, taking a step back and looking kind of at more of like, I posted a video on the one that the Quartering did on it. Did you see that one?
Didn't watch it.
Yeah, he posted it on.
I posted it on Thoughtful Saints, and it got like 2 likes after my other one that got like 35. Yeah. So go figure, right? But Tim Pool covered it last night. So when
Here was my take on it on thoughtful things. Think of the timing. Think of the timing, folks. It's been right in front of you the whole time. Qui bono. And it's the thoughtful saints guy.
No, it's the
Hello Saints guy.
Oh yeah. He was yesterday's meme, huh?
Yeah. But he's obviously been trying to work his magic inside the Mormons.
He's bummed that he's out of the limelight this week. But anyway, I mean, looking at like the international stage and then the national and the international stage, these guys are all like, it's kind of obvious because look what else is happening with Russell Brand. Look what else is happening. Like at the same time, the whole timing of, Mitt Romney calling it quits and him posturing for a potential Senate run.
Speaking of which, multiple times just in the past 2 hours that I was listening to a bunch of Zelf stuff, I heard them sing the praises of Mitt Romney. And that just is weird. Just as weird. It's just as weird that Jacob Hansen's running crap on the decision making of the brethren as it is Zelf on the shelf is praising Mitt Romney.
Fucking clown world.
I mean, and Vice, it's not like, I mean, come on, it's pretty obvious.
Are you talking about Bobert, Simon? Bobert?
Oh, yeah, Bobert.
Bobert was she was
getting
handsy inside of a theater watching Beetlejuice.
Watching a musical.
And vaping too.
Wow, okay.
Which Christian guy? What happened? Oh, that guy, he's been on Quick's channel a whole bunch. His name is what's his name?
Pastor Jeff. Yeah.
He's just been like making the rounds, kind of doing like, hey, I'm a friendly pastor. I'm really, really interested in Mormons and Latter-day Saints. A little bit like Mormon book reviews and Stephen over there. And he's coming around saying, hey, I'm going to read your book. Oh, this is super interesting. This is super nice. This is super great. And then suddenly he goes, hey, guys, I'm moving to Utah and I'm starting a pastorship over in Utah, mega church over in Utah. And so like 3 weeks ago, everybody was very skeptical. Like, look, we told you he was just trying to pretend to get along. Like everybody on Thoughtful Faith got super suspicious of him, going like, he was just playing y'all along, trying to get people to come over. And like they come in and act nice, but they're really just trying to convert people over to their mega church. And then Jacob was defending him and all that sorts of stuff. So then in the middle of all this, I said,
well, Greg kind of defends him too. I mean, it's,
yeah,
but Greg's pretty, I mean, they're pretty straight up about it.
I think the guy's trying to be nice, and he's pretty obviously just saying like, yeah, I'm Christian and I'm trying to be nice to you, but yeah,
he doesn't got ill intentions. I mean, he's not guilty of anything that the Mormons aren't guilty of.
Yeah, but
he wants people to think the way that he does.
Yeah.
But I was just cracking a joke because everybody's saying this is convenient timing because Tim Ballard was going to announce a Senate run. And then I said, well, it's convenient timing because it's right when Pastor Jeff is moving here. And so I was just cracking a joke that like maybe he masterminded the whole entire thing because everybody was suspicious of him 3 weeks ago. In fact, Jacob even made a post saying, all right, guys, last week was Pastor Jeff. The week before that was talking about people profiting off of stuff. What's this week? And who knew he was going to get his wish of the great big subject at hand and this Tim Ballard stuff would drop. But Jacob, I think, has been honest, and he even kind of says it for Tim Ballard. He says that he's skeptical of anybody making a big profit and making a bunch of money off the church and stuff. Did you see his video today, his special message, though?
No.
He just dropped like a 2-minute, Jacob dropped like a 2-minute special message, and his special message is, guys, I want everybody to know that I'm not speaking for the church, and I make mistakes, and I have all this stuff too. And part of it is like a little bit of a feeling to me of like being worried that they're cracking down on anybody associating with the church who doesn't have official approval to do so. At least that's what it sounded like to me. Just in case, because you never know.
Well, hey, they are getting ready to do those mass excommunications, and I'm ready.
Yeah, so Kevin, maybe I'll pull that up. But there's what's that guy from? That guy's
I don't know,
Tribune or something.
Yeah,
he was voted like the top progmo or something. He was saying that the church is going to start excommunicating all these alt-righters. And with the writings on the wall here now.
We've won. We've taken over the church.
Yeah. This is the end of those alt-righters.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said that I think this was political, not in the sense that the church is anti-right wingers. They are anti being associated with anything like that. And if Vice is suddenly here, Vice, we're just here for a human interest story.
Yeah.
We're just journalists here, just checking something out. Don't mind us. They're dropping all this stuff right at the time that guy's announcing his Senate run, right as Mitt Romney announces that he's retiring, and they have all this stuff that just the timing of it's just so sneaky. Let's see here.
It would make me laugh my ass off if Kevin somehow got excommunicated before I did.
So this Calvin Burke guy, I think he is with Deseret News or something like that. He was voted like the top progmo on Jake Johansson's channel. He's on one of those. But he says, it would not surprise me if soon the church does begin mass excommunications of alt-right Desnat-style Mormons, especially as they grow more and more violent against others in their communities. The church has had a problem with right-wing violence, and the threat has only grown. So Kevin and I have been talking.
What the fuck? What violence? Fuck what?
Well, I beat up my garbage man this morning.
There is that.
I get so tired of hearing about right-wing
because he
violence.
didn't read the Book of Mormon, and I told him he better read it.
Because did you know that the number one threat to America is white male right-wing extremist violence?
Hansen basically realized that LDS culture beyond this smaller circle is too varied, super wacky, and now he's in the dead middle of it. That is true. No, I did not. So you said somebody's been following around the Black Menaces guy, and it was one of the Cougar Chronicle dudes. Speech is violence. So the timing is weird. Apparently, Vice sent the church the questions a while ago. An answer came back, and then they dropped it right as this Romney thing goes down. And now the Midnight Mormons and all those guys were even saying, I heard Cardin say, everybody says Mitt Romney's the 13th apostle and all that sorts of stuff. And there could be some things going on with that. But another angle of this that they only poked at, and then Cardin got rebuked for poking at it, and a lot of different people talked about it. I saw Connor Boyack talking about this, is that M. Russell Ballard is likely senile, is the scuttlebutt on the streets. So somebody speaking for him, it's the Leviathan, like the PR department is all that's going to speak for him. A lot of people saying, let M. Russell Ballard speak for himself if he's his friend or not. Well, part of the deal is like, the guy's probably not really there to speak for himself very well, is the word. And that would explain a whole lot of this. But then when the managerial class, the Leviathan of the church, the PR department, the risk aversion machine part of the church, the lawyerly whatever part of the
like
church.
How the Brits put it, the policy wonks.
The policy wonks of the church, the ones who say, listen to us, we're Curtin McConkie, we're PR representatives, we're going to answer this for you and just leave it to us. We'll help you navigate this whole thing. If they start speaking for them and then they never let anybody but them, there's all sorts of people all over Twitter who just say, I'm not going to believe anything until it's out of the mouth of those PR people and in the mouths of the brethren themselves. And I don't think you're going to get it. Like RFM said, oh boy, this will be a super interesting conference coming up. And as Flip has want to say on here, as so often happens, one of the things that frustrated him when he was a young Mormon is he'd always kind of be like, oh boy, here comes the general conference. I'm ready to get guidance in this world. And there's so many things going on. I can't. And then you just go and it's the same messages every 6 months. Don't watch porn, boys and girls. And what else? Come to church, pay your tithe in. And they're not going to mention it. I don't think they'll mention this at all. I mean, we should put down wagers on it. Oh. Comments out of this striped shirt guy as this Jacob Christensen, senior contributor, editor. Is that Jacob Christensen? Yeah, he was on the Midnight Mormons, but they weren't able to do the stream because something was going on with their audio or something. I was ready to listen to him. Anyway, Quaker claims that the Desnat people are piling on Tim Ballard. Kwaku says both Desnat and Progmos are fully for the Leviathan of the church and piling on Tim Ballard. Kevin and I still talk to, we've had Guadamax on here. Guadamax knows the people who actually use Desnat as their thing. Guadamax has been telling us that they're pretty solidly, they're not going to like fully endorse Tim Ballard, but no, they're holding out for Tim Ballard. they're not. And they say that's a framing of Kwaku. They don't understand what Kwaku's saying or doing or making up right there. But they're mostly saying, no, we're giving Tim Ballard the benefit of the doubt till we see something else. I like Jacob Hansen because he represents modern orthodoxy. I think he represents pretty close to what the standard believing LDS member generally is expected to believe. I agree with that too, and it's at least what I thought.
Yeah,
like he's a hard stance from what I thought it was supposed to be when I was in, and if he's got it wrong, then I had it wrong when I was a Mormon or something like that.
I don't think he's got it right. Like, that's the best. It's like the best description of Jacob Hansen. Like, he becomes a seminary teacher, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
yeah, totally.
Everybody, like, of course, then you get the lobsters, like, oh, and Jim Bennett, like, he's gonna poison their mind and your mother's balls.
So Jim Bennett broke his Twitter silence to come out on this hot topic.
Yeah, I want to know when he started his Twitter fast, because I bet it lasted like 14 minutes. Well, this is too important. Everybody needs to know what Jim fucking Bennett has to say.
Yeah, well, that's what's weird, because Jacob is a company man, and the company men are going against the company right now. They really are, which is trippy.
Well, the company isn't led by the leaders sometimes. It's led by middle management HR people. No offense.
The managerial revolution. Yeah, I'm one of those, although I try to be an anti that guy.
Chris, the policy wonk.
I'm the policy wonk.
Guilty policy wonk.
Yeah. I'm not yet proven guilty or innocent, so leave me be. One of the things I saw, like with all this Russell Brand stuff, you see all these like right-wing people saying like, don't all of a sudden jump on the side of Russell Brand. He's not our guy. Just because don't go nailing yourself to him, because it could turn out he's just as guilty as ever. And I barked at one of the guys, Aaron McIntyre, who's a guy I listen to a lot, but I said to him, like, it does nothing to my credibility ever to say innocent until proven guilty. If somebody gets proven guilty, it did nothing to my credibility to say I held out innocent until he was proven guilty.
And they're like, you didn't immediately know he was guilty. You're an idiot.
Yeah, I know.
Like, no, actually, you're evil because you assumed he was guilty immediately.
It does a ton to my credibility if I drop that principle. Like, if I hold to that principle, Flip. Gosh, dang it, Flip. We're not going to be able to. You've been endorsed by Elder Ballard. Yeah, you have absolute proof for that. Oh man,
no, we're not going to do fundraising on them.
We're going to get denounced. Let's see. It's better to say that you want him to be innocent. The company is made of lawyers. Yeah, the managerial James Burnham's managerial revolution. So much of that describes exactly kind of what happened to the church. It's kind of one of the problems of the church. And I even saw Zelf and those guys talk about it, that you lose charisma and all you have is policy wonks and adverse, like risk aversion. Risk aversion looks just like wokeness. Risk aversion looks just like kowtowing to this, I don't know, the CIA or whatever. But I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why the church would act like this. I honestly don't. It is breaking my brain. And so Kwaku also pointed out that in the midst of all this, McConkey's grandson, who is actually a person I know's stake president and bishop, was like, she knew him very closely, was just arrested for diddling babies. I don't know how else to say that. Yeah. And the Kwaku points out the PR department doesn't say anything about him or even mention it or talk about it. But then they do make sure to denounce Tim Ballard. But I mean, it has to do with politics. Like, I think the church has to run away from seeming like they are endorsing or associated with somebody who's running for Senate who will be immediately presumed to be a Trumper. I don't know how else to frame that. And there's so much of it dropping like all at the same time, like that Bobert stuff and the Russell Brand stuff. Aren't there some other ones floating out there right now?
The thing is like nobody's talking about the fact that they had a camera on her in the freaking theater. I mean, Big Brother is like right there. This is what's going to happen. You know, it's like, you know, that's nobody's talking about that thing.
Yeah. And this is all in the mix. I mean, I think it all ties together. But so this letter was sent from Parliament in the UK to Rumble about Russell Brand, that they wanted Rumble to not allow him to monetize himself
Because YouTube
on
already
Rumble.
did it.
YouTube already just went ahead and did it, and some other places, and so because he's been accused by 4 still anonymous women from a decade ago or something like that, and Russell Brand might be seedy, he might not be, all that sorts of stuff. But do you want to know who else shouldn't be able to monetize or talk or be out there at all right now because they're credibly accused? Joe Biden's one. I mean, he's credibly accused of doing the same exact thing. Who else could we throw in there? We could throw in Bill Gates. You know, I could think of quite a few of them, but whatever.
I doubt Bill Gates. I don't think Bill Gates' accusers are even old enough to be able to pronounce accuser.
Flip, you are credibly accused of touching that cat inappropriately. Let's see here. Yeah, you wonder why guys don't. That's heavy petting. Yeah, that is true. That is true. You're not proven innocent yet, so I'm gonna have to. And he's also associated himself with Elder Ballard, so we're going to have to remove Flip. I'm gonna silence you, Flip. You're muted. Okay. Anyway, that stuff's so wacky. So, what do you guys think? Do you think Ballard's slimy, or do you think he's not slimy? Let's make judgments.
Are we voting?
Yes.
This is where it's.
You got to say it now, and if you don't say it, I'm going to associate you with him. If you don't give me a clear answer, you endorse everything he ever did, and that comes out later.
Well, I'm a coward, so I'm immediately going to throw him under the bus. That guy's disgusting. I do not support bad things.
I feel like Howard Stern right now.
Even if he didn't himself
Howard
do.
Stern. Okay, wait.
Oh,
yeah, Howard
what's
Stern's
going on
in the middle
there?
of all this.
Howard Stern is now self-avowed woke. It's
Yeah.
the most backwards insanity, and he's like, who was he shitting on? He was, I can't remember who it was. He was shitting on somebody recently for being
Bobert. It was Bobert.
Was it Bobert?
Yeah.
Bobert. And then you go back and you can listen to videos of him talking about how now that the Olsen twins are 18, he doesn't want to bang them anymore because they're weird looking. And but he had a fixation on them. It wasn't a one-off joke. He was
I was talking with one of my friends.
Bring him up out of nowhere.
There's so much stuff about Howard Stern over the years.
Yeah, he can't not be woke and can't not kowtow to anything that they say.
He has to. I was listening to. They had a clip of him talking about the Columbine murderers on the
and how they should have
after the murders. Like, well, why didn't they rape the girls if they're going to kill them anyway?
Yeah.
They should have just raped them.
I would have.
That's what he said. He dead seriously said that.
I know.
So I was watching this thing on TikTok about him. Do you know that he had this? There was this competing. This is like the 2000s or something like that. There was in Philadelphia. There was a competing morning DJ, and that morning DJ was going through a divorce. So then Howard Stern started airing that guy's divorce laundry on air and saying the stuff they were going through. And then he called up the guy's wife and brought him onto to the set. Had her sit on his lap and started saying all the stuff about how she's sexy and all this stuff, and then talked about his bedroom behavior on that stuff. The lady ended up 2 months later committing suicide off of the whole entire thing. And this is just one of 50 billion different Howard Stern things. If you just go down the rabbit hole of the stuff that he's done. And now that guy's woke, either rich enough to not care, F you money, or rich in a sense of preservation mode. Yeah. The Howard Stern, I can't believe that guy is not just triple canceled anyway.
Did you hear who's writing the this is off topic, I guess, but did you hear who's writing the Paw Patrol spinoff?
I think I did.
The lady
Howard Stern?
No, the lady who's in charge of the Queer Kids Stuff YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And when I say lady, I mean
channel.
actually
Queer Kids
an
Stuff.
ascriber Yeah, an ascriber to the Church of Non-Binitarianism.
Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious. Did oh man, so this is a topic. I guess we'll have to like stream back into it if we want to look at some of the stuff Quaku's been dropping on all of them and that sort of thing. But in the middle of it all too, let me show this. Let's look at Jacob's video here. Tell me this isn't him kind of like feeling the heat of
Oh, I didn't listen to this.
10,000 subscribers the other day, and I want to say thank you to all of you who watch the channel. Now, every week I get private messages of appreciation from listeners, and sometimes these messages are actually pretty deep. Sometimes something that I've said, perhaps with some divine guidance, has landed just right in someone's situation and helped them when they're in a really dark place. Now, I can't tell you how much these messages have touched me. Really, they have. But they also have worried me a little bit, because I don't ever want people to look at me as anything more than just a regular guy who's doing his best to share the truth as he understands it. I am merely doing my best to pass along my witness of the real source of truth, light, and life, our Savior. To be frank, I am kind of an idiot sometimes. I have a temper, I can say dumb things, and sometimes I'm just wrong. And I'm sure that at some point I'm going to say something that you disagree with. At some point I'm going to say things that are just not correct. And I want you to feel free to disagree with me. I don't speak for the church, and I encourage you to place more trust in the collective voice of God's prophets than some guy on the internet like me. This has been quite a journey, and I am deeply grateful for the new friendships and messages of encouragement that I have received from so many of you. I never planned on this happening, but since it has, I will try to do my best to continue to stand as a witness of the truth, and I hope that you will all continue to bear with me as I stumble forward doing my best. Thanks again.
I think that's just kind of feeling worried that they're going to start looking at people who try to speak up for the church from a conservative viewpoint without official approval of it.
Yeah, well, okay, the church is getting so I mean, it's always been bureaucratic for my entire life, but I feel like we're heading to a place where, like, at some point we'll have a disclaimer before general conference, like, these views do not necessarily express the views of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or somebody will come out and say something against like abortion, and the church will be like, the church doesn't necessarily hold a stance on abortion. You don't?
I'll be excommunicated by then, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you'll be gone.
Forced to believe via these exact same newspapers that our president
This is live.
was secretly a Russian asset who had been flipped to service in the Kremlin in the last vestiges of the USSR during the Cold War. Like, I mean, there was a lot of people that were very skeptical. However, as we started investigating, because on this channel, we're keeping all avenues open, and we believe in, even if the media doesn't, we believe in verifying those things and those claims before we pass judgment. We started digging, and we were able to verify that indeed, yes, this came through church PR, specifically through a man named Doug Anderson. And now the question is, did his statement represent the heart and mind of the brethren, or did it not? So all of a sudden people start inquiring into what are his leanings and what are the church protocols. And that's pretty much seems to be the crux of this argument. Are what are the church protocols, and what can we expect in the future on this?
And one thing that I think with this situation is, like, I know Kwaku expressed the worry the other day, hey, if the church is going to respond to Tim Ballard in this way, what's to stop them to responding to anyone else this way, right? And the thing I think we're forgetting when we consider that question, though it is a valid question and a real one to be considering, is just the magnitude of what's going on with the Tim Ballard story, right?
Yeah.
And what the church may have known in order to have them make the statement that they did, right? And having, I mean, it's still up in the air. We haven't seen all of the information yet, but even just the more recent article about the sexual abuse is a pretty harsh one, and the evidence does seem to be mounting up against Tim, right? So I think,
well, when you say
was
not the evidence, the allegations, because nobody's gone on record yet.
Okay,
that's
yeah, no, that's fair.
Is nobody's gone on record yet.
I don't know, man. I think they'll sort it out. I think they'll figure out that the church is correct in this.
Tomorrow is Friday. Do you think they'll release something before the weekend and let it?
No, I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna say anything.
Are they just
until-
gonna just let this go? Because
I think so.
Weird.
I wonder if they're gonna wait because they're supposed to have that information on the investigation released.
That's like that's the end of the month.
At the end of the month. So I just I wonder if they're just gonna like.
But I don't know if they just let that speak for itself too.
And this is all unrelated to the stake president with the recent allegations.
No, that's just not. That's just a whole other thing that
Yeah, it's
happened.
just two different
Sweep it under
things.
the
Jeez.
Like, well, we got two guys. We could condemn one of them. Which one?
rug. The guy who's gonna
That's
be
a
all
McConkey?
this like Trump Senate. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's a
McConkey's
McConkey.
grandkid. And I don't know. So I know somebody knows him, and she said she didn't have any hint or inkling that the guy was that way. But of course, who would?
It's probably
But-
good that he doesn't run for Senate because we don't want a Republican in that Senate seat.
Definitely not a MAGA one because Mitt Romney's been extra worried about the MAGA ones, and I saw the Zelf people talk about how that's so very, very important. Maybe I will go talk about Zelf season now. Do you know that the main reason all this stuff goes bad is purity culture?
Oh, I was wondering.
If we just didn't have purity culture, we wouldn't be suffering none of this. And now you know. Let's see here. So Sam apologizes pretty quickly into this because she said the whole thing centers white children.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah,
How
fuck
do they?
them.
How do they? Because it doesn't center white children at all, you know. But I
It
don't.
doesn't center white children, but like even if like all the children they were talking about were white, they're like, I'm sorry that we are concerned with the non-sexual abuse of white children.
Yeah.
Why is that a bad thing? I don't care what color the kid is. Save him.
Let's see here.
Beginning about how a lot of the times the narratives that the right will peddle about human trafficking involves this like perfect white victim, and so many people in the comments were like, well, the Sound of Freedom isn't about white victims, and OUR doesn't really go after just white children. So that was like obviously an incorrect statement for me to make. It was rooted in the sort of history of like stranger danger and other moral panics in the US.
No, it was rooted in your racist presuppositions. That's what it was rooted in.
It's rooted in that you just have like a ticker of things that you throw out, and one of them is like centering white people is one of the ticker things that you throw out, and you didn't realize that your grab bag didn't work right.
Haven't they gone to like fucking Haiti? And just, like,
It's none of
"We're
it's
sorry,
white
this is
children."
centered around white
Yeah.
children. Did you even think for a second before you said that thing? Did you even think that maybe not everything is
No.
white supremacy? I know that you didn't. Like, I know
'cause, like,
that she
in
did.
her
Nobody ever
mind-
thinks about it. They just shout stupid ass buzzwords like white supremacy and centering the voices and taking the mic away from the otherized, marginalized. Shut the fuck up and say normal things. Think
In
like a
her-
person, you fucking moron.
Thing is, like, what she's betraying is that in her head, like when she imagines a typical conservative, she imagines a ranting white supremacist. That's what she thinks they are.
Yeah.
She thinks an average Republican
She thinks-
voter.
She thinks that a Republican voter is going to be walking by, watching a guy try to lure a kid into the van, and be like, "What are you doing with?" Oh, it's a black kid.
Yeah, I was
Never
going to
mind.
call the
Mind your
police.
business. I was worried about him, but I forgot it's black. Ugh.
If you see a black kid being bundled into a van, and you call 911, that's actually ordering an execution, because that's how that works,
Yeah.
according
What's
to
your
people on
caricature? What is your
MSNBC
caricature,
and
people?
yeah, no, like it really is like, well, that's things that just betrays, because like that's things like clearly, you know, if we're on the train and we see children, we're not like judging them by their skin color, but we know Sam is. Sam's
I
like,
remember,
oh,
I remember growing
that
up in like every
white
now and then.
kid took the best seat on the train.
It's-
Racist.
I'd see like this great episode of like Captain Planet or something, and I was so young, but even when I was at like 5 years old, and I was thinking, okay, this is kind of stupid because the bad guys in Captain Planet were always just fucking up the environment for no personal gain. It's like, let's take some toxic sludge and pour it in the ocean on this stupid fucking dolphin baby, and that's what she pictures. Like Republicans, or not even Republicans, anybody right of her is.
There's
like,
more here. There's more here in this about that. Let's finish. It's coming up here.
Like white children being trafficked as kind of the thing, and the UN has even. I left a pinned comment on the last video. You can go see it if you want. But the UN even issued a report talking about how a lot of the time, like, concerns will only be about a specific type of victim that has historically, in certain situations, been white. Anyway, just want to apologize for kind of throwing that video off right at the bat. I feel like we lost credibility. It's just been back.
Because how could so many people have liked that movie if it wasn't about anything but white children?
It's also like it reminds me of Cardin with the whole like, oh, the only reason archaeologists think that the Mayans didn't have a steel industry is because they were too stupid to make steel. Where it's like, who are you arguing with? And like this thing where it's like, well, you know, the typical narrative is really only about white children. What? Where? What planet do you live on? That's not true. Who the fuck are you talking about?
It was just one of those very rare instances where they were actually giving a shit about non-white children being raped. No, I'm pretty sure it's a very universal human experience to not like it when kids get molested.
A racist
I don't know what stupid caricature you have of us.
She just thinks that, like, just in the course of being a racist, occasionally you're like, oh well.
Perhaps the conservatives accidentally got mad at non-white children getting molested.
So strange. The whole thing, like the immediate reaction to that movie being so popular. I mean, we talked about it on the thing where everybody, like, they were mad. And they did all this stuff about like, oh, they're recentering, and oh, actually, it's just about white people. And it's just like, what exactly is the problem here? It's a movie about a real thing that happens that's terrible. Like,
yes.
Why is this bothering you so much? It's like, well, because it's people you don't like politically, and
they were reaching so fucking hard to come up with things that bothered them, to where all they really had to go on was, well, what if he's taking away attention from victims of molestation in the Mormon church? How come he isn't paying attention to that? He's actually adding to that by not paying attention to it. It's like, are you listening to yourself right now? Write down the thing you just said and read it back in someone else's voice and tell me that's not the dumbest statement you've ever heard.
If you go to the OUR website, there's a big notice that says "No Mormons. We don't care."
Listen, okay, I got this for you.
Like, I feel like I'm so desensitized at this point to so much stuff because we've been doing this YouTube channel for so long, and so much of obviously what we talk about with Mormonism is like the abuse of women and children. But this was just, it's just heinous. Like, it certainly seems to, and this was like a thing that I kind of felt in my gut, and I'm a skeptic, so I don't assume because I have a gut feeling that it means it's true. But I just had a gut feeling. Well, actually, to be fair, I initially listened to the You're Wrong About episode on human trafficking years ago. But once I found out more about like OUR, I just felt like these men from pedophilic purity cultures, which like we're calling a spade, that is like what Mormonism is. And also like the United States in general is still like very like purity culture, pedophile culture, and especially within these like conservative religious circles. But anyway, men from those cultures, as far as I'm concerned, are the last people that should be doing this kind of very sensitive work. Like this is
Mormons are not. They should not be the ones who do any of this work.
But anyway, men from those cultures, as far as I'm concerned, are the last people that should be doing this kind of very sensitive work. Like this is, and also like coming up with their own method that involves them having to cosplay as pedophiles who touch a 16-year-old girl's boobs in the name of getting traffickers, when experts are saying don't do this. Like they've come up with that method themselves.
Right. It's not even like How to Catch a Predator, where they have an adult standing in to play a child. They're using actual children as bait.
Who may have never been trafficked before.
Exactly.
Like
you're creating a trauma for a unique new trauma for someone so that you can make millions and feel like a hero while you felt them up.
I just think it's a bit fucking suspicious, and I'm not suggesting that like anyone who gets involved in activism work is guilty of the thing they're trying to fight, but I just think in this specific instance, Mormon men who seem to be of this very like alpha business bro mindset,
literally alpha con man Jeremiah the Bull Evans, who partnered with Tim Ballard.
That's a whole other thing. But like those types of men being so obsessed with caring about children and fighting the abuse of children, not within their own church, not within their own communities, but in these other places where they conveniently get to go on these like unregulated missions with no oversight, where they cosplay as pedophiles and go to strip clubs and interact with these young girls who apparently just like had to touch her boobs or they would know that they were the police or whatever it was. I just think that's all so fucking suspicious. And given what we know in psychology about how, when you repress healthy sexuality, it will come out in dysfunctional ways. I just don't trust any of it. Like, these are the last people on earth that should be doing anti-child sex trafficking work. Something that.
Who are the first people?
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin, here's a scenario for you. Gun to your head. You got to choose between a weekend, your kid, you're going to either let Tim Ballard watch him or Tanner.
Harami Boy says, who does she think Navy SEALs are? I mean, that's totally the point. Is like you first off, she has such a nanny state thinking that there are experts out there, that there are people who they need some oversight from some people who really actually know what they're doing, like, as if that the reason they're going out in the world is because nobody's doing anything about it. That's why they're going out into the world. And maybe they're overly gung-ho and all that sorts of stuff. But there are no experts. There's no experts, Sam. There's no nanny state. There's nobody in charge, Sam.
Chris,
no one's in charge.
Democrats would have solved sex trafficking if only Republicans would get out of the way. Don't you know?
Sex trafficking only really has to do with poor socioeconomic factors, which has to do with not enough state support.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the schools don't get enough funding. That's what's causing the children to
send the cat lady therapist in. Yeah.
Yep.
Marty says, then she blows up on the ice ramp, and I tried to give it to her. I did this dumb thing, but I was justified because gross Mormon men. Yeah, I mean, they're absolutely saying right there just what Flip was saying. They believe Mormon. If you are a Mormon man, alpha whatever man, you are disqualified from caring about children. Like, you're as bad as somebody who's
called it
himself
a
as
pedophile culture. She said that purity pedophile culture. Like, she's not differentiating them.
No, I know. I want her to go further into that. I've never heard you say pedophile culture before, Sam. Tell me what that is.
Yeah.
Purity pedophile culture.
One thing, she's English.
Or do you want?
And that's what the American Constitution was founded upon.
Slavery and pedophilia. That's right.
Well, did you know that? Oh man, I don't have it. They didn't put a transcript on this one, but towards the end of this one, their most recent one,
the interview. Also, you'll love Jesse as a human.
They start talking about
That's why people like Elizabeth Smart, who is
pedophiles,
and they say it's better and now
pedophiles just admit that they're pedophilic and come out with it and speak. Like, part of the purity culture is not being able to admit your sexual problems, and if everybody just got on board with talking about what their sexuality is and being open about it, we would resolve all this, because it's purity culture that's causing all the pedophilia.
Advocate for, while they're talking in absolute hullabaloo, absurd alpha bro wannabe.
Not usually much of a humanitarian or advocate for others. So it's very interesting to me that suddenly you're all like, no, he's protecting children. I'm like, well, you and them are taking away impoverished children's free lunch tokens in like that state. You know,
it was towards the end of this one.
Tim Ballard took away kids' lunches. Like, he. That's just one thing he did.
He did because white guy did.
No, he and his crew like went into an elementary school and literally started just slapping sandwiches out of children's hands.
Sorry, kid, I saved your life, but give me your freaking lunch.
Vote Republican, fucking poor kid.
Here it is. I found a minute of it. I was too far gone that direction.
Are you playing something, Chris?
Can you not hear it?
No.
Nothing's happening.
You're on the wrong screen.
We were doing some pretty bad podcasts.
This one? Is it there?
Yeah.
I hear nothing.
I want to be like, well, that seems more healthy to me. If someone has that thing and they're like, I didn't choose this, I don't want this, it's fucked up, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And this is my way of being accountable with my community. So then everyone who's like, oh, well, then I'm not going to have this person around my child. And that's a choice that they're allowed to make versus like, I'm going to keep this a start secret. No one's going to know.
Which the world would tell us. Like, I mean, I read The Status Game by Will Storr, great book. and it said they did a study that showed that most people would rather die than be even thought of as being a pedophile, whether or not they are. But like there is no space in our society to be like, I'm attracted to kids, and I know that's fucked up, and I do not want to act like I am absolutely of the belief that like people should be able to talk about that. And
we saw a documentary. Was it on? What documentary
it's like
was that?
this is why I think this is a classic example of how like we need to be able to like confront evil and the darkness, because that's how we bring it into, because someone being like, hey, I'm a pedophile is like immediately reducing their power to like prey on children, because you're putting it out there to be like, so that seems like a good thing to me. I don't think you're under any obligation to follow what I think it's totally fine that because it's also true that like, well, maybe having like a big influence on the platform might make it more likely that they'll indulge that info. It's kind of up. I don't think there's a right or wrong in terms of it's totally valid that you wanted to unfollow them.
The documentary he's thinking of is the biography of Michel Foucault.
What really is consent anyway?
She says later that it should only be women who work in it. It should only be women doing the work to save the girl.
Women to do these sting operations.
Yeah.
I understand she doesn't think that these sting operations should happen. That she thinks that like we can just send social workers to knock on people's doors like altruistic missionaries spreading the word and not raping kids.
Send social workers into
she says
illegal overseas.
It's like right here.
People on earth that should be doing anti-child sex trafficking work. Something that sensitive should be so trauma informed. Ideally I'd like to see women doing it, but I mean, it's not, that's a whole other thing. But
wait a minute, what would be the difference between a man doing it and a woman doing it?
It's just a social construct that there's anything different about men and women.
That there's an inherent difference between
what do you mean? Are you saying something totally sexist and conspiratorial and provably false?
Are you saying women are more nurturing?
No, that's pretty true there. But I'm a monster. I'm a sexist.
Yeah.
So
I accept that belief from you because you're a bigot, but Sam has empathy.
Yeah. They just keep mentioning it, like the right-wing extremists keep using kids as pawns. Iron law of woke projection right there. But I would say that there's a bit of that going on both sides. I'm not saying it's a zero on the right wing, but it's the ones putting kids in the middle of the pawns for sure are left-wing activists, 100%. They keep talking about how like these guys also might do a paramilitary insurrection, and it's spooky and it's scary, and they're all so scary, and they kind of go along with what Kevin was talking about, that they should all be excommunicated out of the Mormon community, and then they start praising Mitt Romney and all that sorts of stuff. Let's listen to that for a second. Mitt Romney praise.
I mean, we could do a whole episode on Mitt Romney. I've been dying to talk about Mitt Romney. We'll do a different one on Mitt Romney.
Support us on Patreon if you want to see that.
My perception of Mitt Romney has just been a roller coaster, and it's the interviews he's done with Atlantic now are so telling and insightful. I can't wait to read the book. He's retiring in at least part due to his fear over his own conservative fan base, who he's like, these people are bloodthirsty. He said he was afraid for his life on the stand in front of them in Utah.
For standing up for the value. I mean, I'm not saying he's done a perfect job, but he has more than a lot of Mormon politicians stood up for the values that Mormonism claims to espouse, like honesty and integrity, blah, blah, blah. But then the minute they see it in one of their guys, who is handsome and doing a good job, it's just so.
Did you just notice his looks? He's handsome and he's doing a good job. Oh my goodness, purity.
He's more than just a pretty face.
Oh, everything goes back to sex, man. I'm so tired of this.
It's so fucked up how like these things that people claim for years and years and years and years and years to be all about, and that they criticize us for not being about. Then it's like they have the minute that like ego comes into play, it's just claiming to care about anything only up to the point where it doesn't affect your fragile ego is not caring about it. That just shows that it was only ever about your ego and tribalism and winning status points and like feeling moral, but like you're not willing to like question.
Anyway, I can repeat it ad nauseum, but the real answer to everything is getting rid of purity culture and owning up to your sexuality. And they even talk about how you should talk and introduce sex and sex ideas to kids at a much younger age, and that's their answer for getting past all this pedophilic stuff.
Okay, well, so like,
Yeah, as soon as
they were
pedophilia
all-
isn't wrong anymore, then it won't be an issue if people are pedophiles. They fixed it.
there's always like a nugget of, there's always a nugget of truth to this, right? Like I remember my friend telling me that like his mom was so weird around sex stuff that like she had to explain to him what a penis was while he was at the doctor. Like because they called it a potty. And so, like I like the idea. Like with my kids, ever since they were old enough to speak, we'd say that the actual terms like penis, vagina. That's what it is. It's boys have penis, girls have vagina, and we'll explain that stuff to them like it's nothing. But that's as far as it goes. You know, that's if you want to be more open about sex with kids, that's it. Like, just don't act like it's a terrible thing. That doesn't mean you need to have gender queer in their fucking libraries teaching them about strap-on blowjobs. Kids, have you ever heard of ass to mouth videos?
Was that video?
It's dead seriously like their answer. It's kind of like the general answer, like with the drug stuff and the border stuff. Just let it all happen and it will take care of itself. That kind of started making the rounds this week that Louis C.K. was talking about, just opening up the borders and let stuff slosh around because that's how we will save everything. And it's generally the idea with most stuff. If you ever saw that TV show, The Wire had this whole episode, this whole season about letting the market become drug free, and this cop let the world become a drug free area, and he saved Baltimore by allowing this drug free zone in the middle of it. And it was kind of this utopian thinking that has absolutely been what's happened with these Soros DAs who've stopped prosecuting that type of stuff all over the country everywhere. And it's not playing out like people would want it to play out. There's been so much with that this week with the open borders and with the cities just getting overrun. And then these different mayors trying to do stuff like they talk about food deserts, and in those food deserts, they need to start having bread lines in the food deserts. And you're just like, you guys are creating the society right under our noses, under the guise of it.
I've decided that if you have a car, you don't live in a food desert. So shut up.
Well,
I don't know. I keep hearing people talk about food deserts, and like this lady I was talking to was complaining about living in a food desert because she has to drive a half hour to get to a Walmart. And like,
no,
that's not a food desert.
Weird. It's because like apparently
you have
like
to drive
Chicago,
a half hour to get things that aren't even in season.
Like the city of Chicago doesn't have grocery stores anymore.
No,
basically, which is like, cause like, yeah, and that's the thing is like, if you're in a big city and there's no grocery stores within a few miles, that is a big deal because it's hard getting around a big city, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just crazy. I just learned that today about how Chicago basically has no grocery stores, and so they're talking about starting city-run, doing government grocery stores. Won't that be a solution?
There was that situation. You remember the bodega, bro? There was it kind of got big on Twitter. This guy who was going around to bodegas in New York, he just moved there from the West, and he was trying to get dinner. And he was going around to all these different bodegas in New York City, just trying to make something that would be a decent dinner. And he couldn't find a decent dinner. And then, of course, he was accused of being a racist for going around and saying that, you know, New York City just has a bunch of bodegas with just a bunch of shit in it. And I can't like make something that's like, I can't make a chicken and quinoa from the places that are available to me here in New York City, anywhere near where I'm at. All I can go do is get chips and fried chicken. And it's kind of funny because this actually tied back into some more Slopgate talk. If
oh my God, Lotus Eaters.
Well, it wasn't them. The distributors had this long stream, and I recommend listening to it because one of the things he talked about is just kind of how our society has moved more towards slop, because there was a bit of a change of, you know, you had a diner, there was a nice diner like a McDonald's or a Bear whatever diner, Black Bear Diner, but there was the original one that was actually good food, and then we had the managerial class come and take it over and turn it into whatever sort of factory based, like it got passed out to the world, and then those slowly over time turned into their own kind of form of slop. But then it started becoming more and more difficult to eat out, to dine out in the world, because dining out in the world, would get expensive or whatever. But then stuff got around the COVID times, and if you started noticing, people would stop having nobody holds like a dinner party anymore, right? This is what he was talking about. Instead of holding dinner parties, people would start going out to eat, and then we had like a little bit of a moment, maybe through the 2005s through 2020s. It was like, look at all these different fanciful ways to eat at different places, and people would even kind of use that as an argument for why you needed to increase immigration, because think of all the food of these places that will come. We get these different interesting restaurants all over, and then COVID time hits and the price of the stuff goes up. People stop even eating out. The only way you'd ever eat with friends is if you ate out for like 10 years. And then after eating out for 10 years, it turned into, now we just order out, and the ingredients to everything's turning into more and more and more slop. And he kind of just like does this whole progression, and it kind of leans back to, do you remember there was that girl who was on TikTok talking about spicing foods, and everybody said, you spiced the food wrong. She put like celery, onions, and
she put
garlic,
actual fresh things on it.
Yeah.
And then she showed them that, like, look, on your dried stuff, it's the same ingredients. That's like, this is seasoning. And then people called her racist for talking about fresh ingredients on her food type stuff. And then, so just this whole, he kind of just paints this picture of everything really moving towards slop. And I think it kind of aligns more in what we were talking about, that it's probably more the American consumers. The same thing that happened to the church's PR department happened to our food. It just slowly started becoming slop because it was overtaken and run by a managerial class.
No, I think you're right about that, because I noticed that so Rexburg, Idaho, where BYU is, right? They just got a Denny's, and the Rexburg Facebook group has not been shutting the hell up about it for like a couple months now. They keep talking about
Denny's.
They got a Denny's in Rexburg.
Is it open 24 hours a day?
Oh no, that stopped after COVID. But we already have a Denny's in Idaho Falls, and there's a Denny's in Pocatello. Like, there's plenty of Denny's around. But anyway, it's pretty hilarious because like people kept asking after like the grand opening of Denny's, which I didn't know was like a thing you would do for a Denny's. But they're like, how's Denny's? Is it really good? It's a fucking Denny's. What are you talking about? Like, have one 20 minutes away from you. Now you have one 4 minutes away from you. What? This isn't. This is slop.
Yeah. So part of all of this is just talking about, what James Burnham talked about, the managerial revolution. We talked about it here. Is just everything turning into that, and there's a bit of a vortex of what our society is, and our risk aversion society, because some of that comes from the COVID thing. Some of it comes from just the price of stuff going up and the inflation, and then avoiding being around other people, and then stopping having dinners. This is the he paints a really good. I recommend listening to the whole thing. Slop in the Sacred Table from the Distributist. It's a 3-hour long thing, but it's not 3 hours. It's his first hour. The first hour, he gives this kind of progression of he frames the slop debate a little bit better, but the slop stuff also kind of goes in line with how you saw the church go from whatever it was to this managerial, I don't know what, it got turned into corporate, whatever.
Do you remember Patton Oswalt's bit on the Famous Bowl? This is where he talks about like who came up with the idea of the KFC Famous Bowl. It's like somebody just said, well, everybody likes corn and chicken and potatoes and gravy. We put them in a fucking trough, and you don't even give them a fork. Just let them eat it out, suck it out of there. And somebody pitched the idea back. Well, or we could separate all the items, and they could put them on a plate and eat them like a human being with dignity.
A put on dinner for your entire family. Listen to that whole podcast, because he kind of goes into it. He even talks about this whole story. It's called Mrs. Babbitt's Feast, and it's a story of this lady in kind of Victorian times who wanted to just put on a feast for a whole town and just put herself over, spent her whole entire life savings to just put on this one feast for people. But I think he kind of makes like a good case that like there's something about you need to touch grass and get people out and invite them over and cook for them and figure out a way to cook for them and get away from the slop, and don't even go out to like the different dining experiences, because that was like halfway down the slop experience of just, well, now you just have all these different diners to go to, and the only way you'll ever meet up with other people is at a diner, but nobody ever like puts on a dinner for anybody else anymore. That's gone. And he makes that argument again that bringing that back might bring back something that's kind of more homey about it too. But whatever that process is a process going on in everything. You can even, I like to think of
When
movies.
Baudrillard comes to Rexburg.
When Baudrillard comes to Rexburg. Movies like Marvel movies, like the way people can't figure that stuff out, they really honestly, I think if you look at it, they felt that they've really figured out how to factorize mega hits. I really think that's what they did, is like, we had these stories, we kind of had like this general story, we get the general base of, you get a superhero, you get somebody who has sort of the same stuff on the other side, get some even
All
kind of
formula.
other people who shoot the action scenes. But then it even got around COVID and they realized that we don't even need to go on location. We can just do it all in this one set. I frequently joke for years, I brought it up on here, like, I bet you The Rock doesn't even know what movie he's filming any given day. Like, I think he goes to a cubicle as much as I do. Like, just as much as I go, and I'm only ever working out of this one little office. The Rock goes to that same little office and they put lines in front of him and he says them and he never even knows what movie he's in. And I think that's what the whole entire Marvel thing is. Like, it's all just gotten to this thing of like, we could factorize this, but the church has 100%. And maybe Jacob and those guys are more willing to stop and be honest and look at it now. Maybe they were all along, but just more directly, like, what sort of managerial blender have we put ourselves through here? Like, we have completely turned into a PR firm, and the only things that we give out is, Flip, you've said it over the years, that once General Conference comes around and you're hoping for something to come out of it, but it's kind of just the same stuff over and over again. And maybe some of that, just like the food, there's still some meat and whatever in the McDonald's, there's still some hamburgers in it or whatever, but you have this factory process going on all around it that's turning the thing to slop, and it's turning it into something that's just risk-averse crap that, let's see here. What's your answer for most people moving around all the time and running a farm as well? Oh, you're talking to somebody else about farms and stuff. That have some missionaries over for dinner. Yeah, that's one way to do it, I suppose. Although I never talk to missionaries anymore. But but is there, once things get on like those managerial class wind downs, is there any getting off of it? Like, could the church reverse course on this crap at all? Because I think part of what this whole thing can be chalked up to is that they just have to run from anything that seems political at all. And it's so bald-faced apparent right now in this Tim Ballard thing that it's just kind of exposing that, like, you guys have got to pry yourselves away from the Leviathan of whatever sort of managerial bullshit is really running you. And if you guys want to actually save any sort of church.
So what do you think the percentage is, though, like of people in church positions that are just sort of normal church conservatives guided by the managerial Leviathan versus people who are like actually kind of like progressive HR types?
I think the clergy is conservative, but it's the
I think
the
it's
people that
getting
work for
split.
the church. They're college grads. They went to college.
I don't know. It's getting kind of split. I see.
Yeah, I don't think it's zero. I don't think there's zero real deal people in there. But.
You know, I moved in 2018, 2019 from Spanish Fork to Saratoga, and COVID hit. And so I was kind of still in touch with the people in my ward down in Spanish Fork, and then my ward here. And my bishop here is actually pretty good. My stake president here is actually pretty good when it came to like the whole COVID thing. They weren't like super overbearing. But down in Spanish Fork, they were pretty, like, we went like, I don't know, it was, I want to say like 10 months, you know, the whole mask thing was kind of starting to wind down, but their stake president there was just like, everybody still got to wear a mask. You know what I mean? So I think that there is some kind of independence, but I see that things kind of splitting, and you got more progmos coming out. You know what I mean? And I think that you're going to continue to see that
because they have to resist the progmos. Because I don't know that it's even the progmos are one of the issues of the whole thing, but I don't know. I think just them. Obviously, all of this stuff was. Nobody can convince me otherwise. They had some sort of major political CIA level thing breathing down their neck right here. I like, you guys better not somehow associate yourself with a MAGA Senate run. Like I really feel that they had to have been feeling some pressure to stay the hell away from that. And that's this whole entire thing could be explained of run from that as fast as you can. And I don't necessarily mean it think it means that they for sure, well, it's because we're with the other thing. It's just stay away from that. Do not be associated with a MAGA Senate run, whatever you do.
Well, I think you're right. I think that it is the whole risk averse thing. You know what I mean? It's like we got to stay as far away from anything as risky as possible when they're trying to continue to do stuff like build temples and trying to send missionaries out. They got to kind of, I think that's kind of their perspective, that they've got to protect that. I think that in my opinion, that was kind of like the whole thing with, that's kind of how I sort of wrangled with the whole vaccine like thing, you know, when they came out saying, because I didn't, you know, I was just like, what the heck's this, you know, but I kind of just like, it's sort of a rendering unto Caesar, you know, so that they can.
But Caesar's so overbearing. You know,
yeah, I know.
Piece of shit. Fight
That's
it.
the thing is that's the thing is it's going to continue to go that way.
Yeah, I don't know how they get out of it. It seems like a funnel that you can't break. It's a.
I mean, a lot of people want to wrangle back to also the 501c3 status. You know, that thing too. So
is there an apostle in the lineup ballsy enough to, because technically, like, the prophet could just do it himself. He could just say, "To hell with you guys. We're not doing this risk aversion shit." Nilsson's not going to do it, but like
maybe Oaks.
Maybe. I don't know. He seems pretty corporate, but he also seems pretty hardline conservative. I don't know.
Is there any, like, what would it take for a prophet to come into that was like in their 50s?
Like
right now,
kind of thought
it has to be like a
was
designated.
Close to it, but
well, Bednar, if somebody mapped out like the amount, like the average age,
it goes by seniority. That's the crazy thing.
Does.
It really is just straight seniority.
So Bednar, if averages work out in the right way that they're supposed to, I think he'll end up being the prophet for like.
Well, that's part of the
or something crazy like that, if I remember right.
So there's so much of this that you have to feel like it's the old decrepit king in Lord of the Rings, and there's Wormtongue. There's Wormtongue right in his ear, right there, right. And how do they get rid of Wormtongue? I don't know how they get rid of Wormtongue, because you only have old decrepit kings. Part of that, I mean, the guy was able to snap out of it in Lord of the Rings, but there's a reason why. It's kind of even like a trope in art. Like if you think about like the Sultan in Aladdin or anything like that, that you have these feeble idiot old kings who are just easily pushed around, or it's kind of, people point to it as one of the signs of like a decadent society, because they want kind of senile idiot old dipshit kings as their front, because they can be easily controlled by the Jafars of the world and that sort of deal. And I saw the New York Times just put out something this week, if you guys saw it. The New York Times said that they're trying to secure the federal positions and make them Trump proof so that Trump wouldn't be. And it's like, the deep state doesn't exist, and we're trying to secure it so Trump can't get rid of it. They
got to fortify it.
But there's so much of that feels like the church is just going to be endlessly susceptible to it if all they ever get is guys who are pushing kind of, you know, they've gone through their managerial class training all the way up to when they finally get selected. But then once they're there, like, people want to look to M. Russell, like somebody who could clear all this up real quickly is M. Russell Ballard. And I don't think there's any way to think about M. Russell Ballard except for that king with his whited out eyes, and Worm Tongue whispering in his ears right now. Like his handlers are dealing with him more than he's dealing with himself, in my belief and opinion of the situation. Maybe not. Maybe the guy's got, maybe he's got some thoughts still to string together, but from word on the street is the guy's not even there to consult with. And so we only get the PR team for that. It's, I don't know how that, I don't, am I imagining it up, or is this just, is that really how it is? That's what it is there, isn't it? I mean, they are stuck in that a little bit.
The thing is like nothing is exempt from that pattern happening.
Yeah,
no,
100%.
it happens to every organization.
Without a doubt.
Every single
one.
one.
So how do you fight it? I mean, it goes back to those 3 laws of what's his name? The oh gosh, I forgot his name. But there's those 3 laws that any organization that is not expressly conservative, you know.
Yeah.
But how does the
Cthulhu
church
swims
fight
left.
it? How does Cthulhu swims left? But how does the church fight it? Like how do they, can they extrapolate out of it? Can they pull out of it? Or is there no pulling out of it? And you just have to like let the thing turn into like an old decrepit Leviathan that dies and something new springs out somewhere else, you know. But I don't know. Can it rescue itself? And does it need rescuing, or am I imagining this whole thing up?
Oh, it needs rescuing. It all needs rescuing. It's even if it doesn't, even if you could say that it doesn't need rescuing right now, it's clearly heading in a direction that needs rescuing, because like everything risk averse becomes just stupid and soulless and corporate.
Mm-hmm. And
the
corporates,
thing is,
go ahead.
Well, I don't know. When I think of it like doctrinally or scripturally and stuff like that, of course, you know, Dan McClellan would tell me I'm wrong, but you know, when you look at like Revelation and stuff like that, and you're talking about like the whole thing, like with the mark of the beast and all that kind of stuff, the preceding events, you know, of the second coming, a lot of it, you know, kind of alludes to the fact that this thing is going to be compromised by the beast.
Yeah.
And that the, you know, you look at the stout horn, the Antichrist, who it does say that he will actually go inside the temple. Now, how does it get to that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even that's what's always been strange to me about even the Mormon church, the LDS church, the Bible and everything. Like, what are the stories of it except for that the good thing can go corrupt? Is that not the story of all?
I was catching that on my mission.
Religion?
It's like, why if this happened to the Jews, why can it not happen to us?
It happened to the Catholics.
It happened to the
Jews,
Catholics.
It happened to the
why can it not happen to us?
It happened. It can happen to the Nephites. It can't happen to you. Like,
that's the thing. Is I don't know. When I was on my mission, I looked at it and I said, you know what? There's a difference between the organization and the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we are, I don't know who, I thought I remember hearing somebody say, attributing a quote to Brigham Young, but again, this is just a hearsay thing, but like, if the church wasn't true, we would have destroyed it a long time ago or something like that. You know what I mean? You probably heard that one around, but like that, the whole point is that, you know, for me, I saw it, you know, I saw things going down. We were on the wrong side of the tracks in our ward. We were the long hairs of my ward, you know, and that kind of thing. So I kind of grew up, you know, sort of Jack Mormon and not super orthodox. And I kind of just looked at it and said, you know, we got treated unfairly too, you know, but that's just how things go.
Now, so Christopher Rice had a good comment. He said they need to adopt priorities above organizational continuance. And that's just kind of I don't know. That's a thing you learn in every story. Like, we learn best through stories. And
poker.
The first thing that the main character learns is that there are some fates worse than death.
In poker, if all you are doing is protecting yourself, you're protecting your stack, you are losing.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna have to duck out early. I had seriously 2 hours of sleep, so
no, we can't go on without you. You're staying, and that's that.
All right, I guess I've been forbidden.
No, you can take it off.
All right.
Thanks for
Well,
tuning.
I'll see you guys later.
It needs a completely different approach to succession without the seniority thing. Everything needs that. I mean, we need to do something about like just the old people in Congress and all that stuff. But at the same time, you look and like, well, then what youngsters do we put in there? The stupid commies. That's all that's out there.
Yeah.
Now. But
I remember, and I was in high school the first time I had that moment because, like, my peers were talking about like we are the future. They were being revolutionary, and I'm like, oh crap. Like, you guys? No. Like, no, you can't be the future.
Not you. Anyone but you. Term limits. Yeah. What is it? I think it's G.K. Chesterton who said this is one of the things that I'm going to pull up the quote. But it says, let's see here. I'll pull it up here. Share screen. Man, why does stuff always go out of order when I believe what really happens in history is this: the old man is always wrong, and the young people are always wrong about what is wrong with him. The practical form it takes is that while the old man may stand by some stupid custom, the young man always attacks it with some theory that turns out to be equally stupid. That's pretty true. Come from that guy way forever ago. I want to see a chart of the average age of the Q15 over the past 100 years. But I mean, this is a problem everywhere. And maybe it's, I was talking to Kevin about it too. We've got a world where people's bodies are outliving their brains. And, it's so funny. I saw, that comic, Jared would have said who he was, but he was talking about Biden. He says, like, why does Biden turn into a Roomba right after he finishes any speech? He just starts like zooming around the room. And you're not allowed to say like how decrepit the old king is or something like that. And it's just kind of joke. But then like Trump's the answer. Term limits. Nancy Pelosi's running again. Oh, come on. You got the dude. Who's the dude in Philadelphia who he got approved to wear gym shorts to the Senate? Oh, man. Anyway, we need to talk about Ibram X. Kendi. Remember that dude? Boston University is investigating Ibram Kendi's anti-racism center following allegations that he mismanaged grant funding, failed to deliver key projects, and unleashed employment violence on staff. This is what happens when DI replaces merit as the guiding principle. Following layoffs, Boston University announces inquiry into Ibram Kendi's anti-racist center. One of the claims that they made is that he disproportionately fired Black people. They really made that claim. And baby in Kendi drama. So
you know what the answer to racism is, right?
More racism.
More racism.
They literally said that so they went and looked into like his department and all that sorts of stuff that they were supposed to be spearheading all this research, and they've done none of it.
No way.
The money's just been pissed away. And then he had to fire all of his people of color.
That's where all the Twitter middle management went.
Yeah. $30 million in 2 years. But here's Dan McClellan simping for it right again in 10 seconds. So the senator says, it's sad to me that we can teach truth of Black history, warts and all, without teaching postmodernist identity politics. And this is one of the things that came up this week. They covered it on Radical Center. This lady from Utah was talking about some of the ideas that were brought into Utah's ethnic studies classes. And those ethnic study classes are all about revolution. And it's here in Utah. It's right in the writings and stuff. They also said they don't want this to turn this into ethnicity of the week type stuff. We need it to be about revolution. They have that written right into the policies of Utah's ethnic studies for children, K through 12 schools stuff. And this is what this senator was talking about, because there's a clip there, a YouTube clip about the ethnic studies in Utah. Radical Center covered it with this lady. I think Jonathan's even had her on his channel. Marty might have even talked to her once. But she's a black woman, and she's anti all this crap, and she's looking into Utah's educational bull crap that they're pushing with their ethnic studies stuff. And ethnic studies isn't about learning other ethnicities, folks. It is not learning about that. It is about learning to be a revolutionary thinker. Dan McClellan, it's sad to me that a Utah state senator continues to willfully misrepresent scholars and the data regarding systemic power asymmetries because his own right-wing authoritarian identity politics incentivize him to do so. Even when shown the data, he can only deflect and evade. You don't have any data, Dan McClellan. Like, your only data is disparities. And I answer him down here. Even Kennedy just disproportionately termed a bunch of POCs, Dan. The racism is very systemic. And
Blythe.
Blythe. Oh, I saw Jim
Blythe
Bennett.
rhetorical prophylaxis, Chris.
Jim Bennett dropped the word Blythe in like his second post on Twitter, like returning like, oh, like you aren't just gobbling up Dan McClellan left and right, Jim Bennett, you goofball. But Dan McClellan, we screened at him a million times to look at Thomas Sowell, and he just ignores that, because I know a million people have shown that to him. Speaking of which, Thomas Sowell dropped a new book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't believe that guy is still pumping out.
He's
books.
93.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything. He's getting old.
I wonder if I can show why Fox News is all predatory nowadays on stuff, but he talks about it here, and one of the things he talks about again is the way that they count systemic systems with systemic systems doesn't make any lick of sense, which he's just been talking about for, I don't know, look how old he is there. He's been going on for 50 years about this, and we've tried to scream it at Dan McClellan 10 million times, and he just blocks us. You just ignore and evade the data. You just ignore and evade the data.
50 years ago, he was middle-aged.
Yeah.
What does
It's
Thomas Sowell know about data?
Yeah.
What is he, an economist or something?
So it turns out, I don't know if you guys might have suspected this, but Ibram X. Kendi is a great big fraud. But I hate to jump to conclusions, but did you know Leonardo DiCaprio is speaking out about saving the Great Salt Lake?
Whoa.
He's here to save the day.
Finally, somebody's going to do something.
Yeah. Save us, Leo. I just watched
What's he gonna
Shutter
do?
Island.
Is he advocating for us to not selling our water to California then?
I guess so.
Interesting.
I don't know. I hope he flew here in like 30 jets to save us.
Shutter Island.
Here it
Disappointment
is.
Island.
Shutter Island, like, how long did it take you to guess the twist? Was it -2 seconds or -3?
Yeah.
Shutter Island, he goes to an island to investigate. It's a mental institution island to investigate a missing person. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it turns out he's the patient. Ooh. I should have said spoilers. Biden administration aims to Trump-proof the federal workforce. Yeah. No deep state, folks. It don't exist. Let's see. I'm still reeling on the Timothy. So did you? So Neil deGrasse Tyson went on trigonometry. Did you guys get this joke here? It's
no, I didn't get exactly the reference.
So there's been this stuff going around that, and it's real. Like, if you listen to it, it started with Adam Carolla. Adam Carolla started it on his. He started noticing it back in the day when they would take calls on, what was that late night show he did with Dr. Drew?
Loveline.
That he'd noticed that anytime certain people would call in, that they would have a fire alarm chirping in the background because they didn't change the battery, and he'd notice it. And there's all these like clips of him talking and listen to it. So a bunch of stuff came up recently that they noticed, like when those guys were suing New York City, there was all those black people who were suing New York City to because they didn't pass this teacher's test or something like that. they had interviews with the different people, and for reals, the different people in their interviews would have the smoke, the chirping fire alarm in the background, each one of them. And they started noticing that it was just like a bunch of different black people. So now anytime Joy Reid talks, people like Mark whatever, they'll put like a chirping thing in the background whenever Joy Reid's speaking. And so people do that like little joke like here and there all the time. But here's this Neil deGrasse Tyson putting his arms up, and just this week he tried to justify the trans kids things again on trigonometry. And if Jared was here, he'd be going off on it right now. But says, no, I can't tell you why the hallway chirps, but I can measure it. I can predict the next and following chirp. I have a very good understanding of it, and that's good enough for me. I'm not distracted by the philosophical side of why the hallway chirps. Oh my goodness. Let me pull it up.
That's funny.
Here it is.
As an avid online gamer, I'm no stranger to communicating verbally with a wide swath of the population running the gamut of the socioeconomic spectrum, doing so on the foolish notion that teamwork makes the dream work. Oh, of course, the reality is you can't convince a kid to take advice from a disembodied voice online. It's safe to say I've heard all kinds of sounds through my headset, but one in particular is annoying and troublesome. No, it's not the siren song of a single mom yelling at her child that it's past his bedtime. The sound I'm talking about is best described as a chirp, no doubt emanating from a smoke that pops up at regular intervals, cutting through voice communication. Oftentimes, not even the loudest sound, but the most problematic nonetheless. My initial hypothesis was that the individual with the smoke detector chirp is simply lazy. Hence, the chirp of laziness was coined. They always swear up and down, they can't hear it. The term ear blindness has been brought up as they've grown to tune it out. But even more worrisome, it turns out that the individual with the chirp of laziness is more often than not black. Now, I brought this up on Reddit, and this post has been getting a lot of replies because it seems to be the only search result on Google for this subject. No one is willing to can black people hear the chirp of the low batteries in the smoke detector? Scientists are not willing to touch the subject because of the race. But you will notice during the lockdown, if a black guest was on a show coming in via Zoom meeting, there was a chirp of laziness. I've seen this done with Lennox Lewis on a podcast. You can have mayors and elected officials of various cities across the country calling in for a Zoom meeting on live television and hearing that chirp. And no one is willing to bring it up. Upon further investigation, I have concluded the following as possible explanations behind why black people cannot hear the chirp from smoke detectors. It has been brought to my attention by a guy who was delivering pizzas that there was a complex that he would deliver to, and it was all black residents, and it was a symphony of chirps. It makes you wonder how it is that more black people die in fires than white in the United States. It's quite possible very few black Americans, at least, have.
We're researching the data here, Dan McClellan. We're finding out like why the disparity
This is amazing.
in fire death stuff happens.
Smoke detectors that are functioning correctly. Now, have they grown accustomed to tuning out background noise? Say if you live near the railroad or an airport, the plane flying overhead, the train going by may not bother you, but they will bother a visitor trying to sleep over for the night. Or is it possible that black people have a genetic difference regarding how they interpret sounds? I am actually more inclined to believe this if we take into account the music black people listen to. Their cars, very heavy bass as they roll by. They love to feel that bass. And it could be because the pitch from the smoke detector chirp is simply not audible for them. The scientific community should be ashamed of themselves for not exploring this. And I hope that in some way this video encourages the black population to take action. Change the batteries in your smoke detector.
Who did this video?
That was just a random guy, but like iHypocrite did like a whole video that actually like pulls out the different examples of the people who actually really didn't change their smoke detectors.
I don't know how you don't. It makes me insane.
Anyway. I
Have you
can't
got-
find it that fast. I should pull it up. But what was that?
Said, what have you got? You got more?
More stuff? No. Have you guys heard of the Cathol tilt?
Cathol tilt?
Cathol tilt.
No.
Oh, and we also need to talk about the Roman Empire.
I was thinking about that like all day.
Yeah, these are things that are going around TikTok. But the Cathol tilt is this thing that kind of hit TikTok. That supposedly, if you measure this tilt in your eyes, the canthal tilt, it can predict your attractiveness. And if you have a tilt that looks predatory, you cannot be attractive at all to women, supposedly, according to this is the canthal tilt right here. So this guy's got a negative canthal tilt. That canthal tilt means that you will never appear attractive and you appear as a predator. Like when you look at women, this might speak for some of that physiognomy stuff that people get into. Like if we look at your face, you can tell you're a predator or a serial killer or something like that. And this all blew up all over the TikTok world of people looking at canthal tilt to see if it's attractive or not. Anyway, the Roman Empire. How often do you guys think of the Roman Empire? Mewing, mewing is. I actually talked to somebody about mewing yesterday. They were asking me, like, how do you make your face more straight? And there is some people who do think that there is some science behind that. If you do some mewing, it can get you a stronger jawline there. Mewing is you stick your tongue up all day, every day to the roof of your mouth, and do that. If you do that, it'll tighten your jawline or something like that. The canthal tilt and mewing, man. These are types of things that incels and those types of people talk about because they're constantly talking about why they can't or how they can never be or never will be or maybe could figure out how to somehow become attracted to women out there at some point or another. But the Roman Empire, a bunch of women were asking men how often they thought about the Roman Empire. How often do you guys think about the Roman Empire?
50 times an hour.
I do about that much too. It's pretty close to that. Here, I'll pull up this. I've got too many screens open now. Ooh. I don't know. Do you feel like we put that Tim Ballard thing to bed? That thing can't. There's still so much about that that's
yeah. I gotta believe more is going to come out, but what if they just leave it at that and that's that? I wonder.
Yeah. Come on.
Are terminally online, as I am, much to my shame, then except on the weekends, then you are already well aware of it. At some point over the past week or so, it came to my attention, it came to the attention of many women, rather, on social media, that the men in their lives frequently think about the Roman Empire. This was a shock to women, most of whom have never had a single unprompted thought about the Roman Empire, or frankly, any ancient empire, much to their shame, at any point in their lives. And so Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok soon became flooded with videos of women asking their husbands and boyfriends whether they think about this subject and how often. Here's just a quick compilation of a few of these fascinating conversations. Watch.
About the Roman Empire.
How often do I think about it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It is technically every day.
Do you think about the Roman Empire ever?
Yeah, I guess sometimes. I don't know. Once a week. Maybe not think about the Roman Empire.
I love dudes. Why do you hate dudes so much, Sam? Dudes are so cool.
How many times, a week, or just how many times in general, do you think about the Roman Empire?
What about the Roman Empire?
Just anything about it.
Probably not a lot. Why?
Not a lot. When was the last time you thought about it?
Maybe a week or two ago.
The Roman Empire was a very big part of history.
So how often do you think about it?
Not a lot.
How often? Once every month?
Maybe 3 or 4 times a month.
You think about the Roman Empire once a week.
It has a lot of big like stories and lessons like within the Roman Empire of what to do and what not to do. So yeah.
So you think about the Roman Empire once a week?
Sometimes, yeah.
How often do you think about the Roman Empire?
I don't know, every couple of days.
So this has
toxic man. Men are so toxic. Did you know that some ex-Mormons are toxic?
Some?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you're going to get to this.
Let's see if I can pull it up.
I know that some of them are crusty.
Types of ex-Mormons started. Did everyone get here okay? Yeah, I actually got here 20 years ago when I was like 7. I figured out how to get here way before all of you. All right, now there are refreshments in the corner. Please help yourself. Now, while I am an ex-Mormon, I am now in relationship with the true Jesus. Would y'all mind holding hands so we can say grace over our food? Yeah. Let me just take attendance first. Pothead Exmos, are you here? Yeah, but I'm not like sure where here is. Oh, well, thanks for bringing the brownies. It's like I can leave them, but I can't leave them alone. Oh, that's just scumbag ex-Mormons. They think that just because they coincidentally came to the same conclusion that the Mormon church isn't true, that they also get a seat at this table. If we could all just in unison tell them to get fucked in the name of Jesus. Hi.
She's a
What do you think
comedian,
about that?
everybody. She's a comedian.
So
That's her main gig.
Who do you think the scumbag ex-Mormons are?
Well, you are.
What?
For sure.
Straight from the priest class, Exmos.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, I gotta show this meme. Hold on here. So now you get this meme.
Like I even think like there's opportunities for humor in that
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh goodness. See how hard you make us laugh, Nuance Ho? We're still laughing at that Nuance Ho clip there.
Yeah, that was really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I wonder if they had ceiling birds back in ancient Rome.
Now you're thinking. No, probably the ceiling birds that taught the ancient Romans how to build arches. Oh goodness gracious. What you were saying something about Nuance Whole Flip.
She's a comedian, didn't you know?
That
That's her
is
main
true.
gig. It's humor.
That was a pretty good one by Mormoner right there.
That's pretty good.
Oh my goodness.
So I
Anyway.
did my homework.
Yeah.
I watched Gone with the Wind too.
Part 2?
I watched all of
You
it.
want to know that there is a book number 2 my mom told me about and she read it?
What
So
the
what did you
fuck
think
did
about
Scarlet
Gone with the Wind?
do?
She goes and joins the clan. That's part 2, but it wasn't commissioned. It wasn't written by the same lady. It was written by somebody else later. Yeah.
I had no idea, like, because I always knew that movie was a romance and it was about the Civil War. I had no idea that it was about an evil, manipulative woman.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
about
That's
how
what I'm telling you
glorious the
about.
South was.
That's what I'm telling you, man. Like, it
No,
blew
like
my
it's so
mind.
messed. Yeah, no, like I really was like, and then I was talking about like because I've got my friend at work who was like she's a little bit older than me and she's from the South. She's from Alabama, and she talked about how like every year they would play that in theaters, and it was like an event. She said like her dad would take them, and she'd have to sit next to her great aunt who wore a bunch of perfume and all that. But even because like we were talking about how like the only like competent character is Mammy, the
Oh,
the black,
totally. Yeah.
like she's the only one like she always knows what's up and she's confident and she's firm and she takes no shit and she's the only one who knows what's going on.
Uh-huh.
But like, because I was confused because Scarlett O'Hara is awful.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. And you kind of can't believe that they dared to portray a woman that way in that time frame, like
well, because the other
1939.
thing, I mean, the thing that really struck me, and like, but it's also I don't know. I think it's how the world works, because there's like the scene where Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh, Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara have a big fight, and they're married, but it's like cold and everything's gone badly, and Clark Gable's like, well, tonight you don't have a choice, and he carries her upstairs, and the implication is that they have unconsensual sex. And then it cuts to the morning, and Scarlett O'Hara is just glowing, and it's the happiest day
But
of
then she
her
doesn't want
life.
she doesn't want to admit it to him. Like she wants to keep playing up that she's upset about it. Like, how dare you? But she is also like, that was the best night I ever had in my life.
Like it's the happiest she is in the entire movie, and it's 4 hours long, and it's just her being miserable, despite being the most privileged person on earth. It's other things like, and I can't figure out like what that movie is like. Who are the heroes? They're like, I don't understand, and it's so confusing. But also like, because like, I mean, I always knew that there was like, sympathy for the South, sure. But like that movie is so not just pro South, but anti-Yankee. All Northerners are just portrayed as just villainous, as just utterly villainous
Yeah.
and stupid and awful. And oh, those dirty Yankees, they have
Yeah.
no sense of honor. Like, and it's just so it's like I had no idea what that movie about. But also like on top of all that, like beautiful, unbelievable cinematography.
Yeah, could you believe that? Like just seeing like all the groups of the people
And
together, and
the sets and the extras, like, but yeah, the sets were incredible. The costuming was all amazing. Like the pacing, the framing, like it was just an unbelievably well.
some of the scenes that blew my mind is just like in a large dance hall that you have
Yeah.
this dancing going on in the background across a large amount of talking. And I'm like, how do you keep that dancing going for that much talking and not have like all these continuity errors and all this sorts of stuff? Like it melted my brain.
Yeah,
And
just really incredible movie. But yeah, I had no idea what it was really about. And I'm still not sure what it's about. Because like it seems to glorify the South, but like it ends with them going like, well, we're fucked, but there's always a tomorrow.
there's always a tomorrow. I mean, I think you got it. I think that's all it really is. And her longing for that alpha widow, that alpha that she always longed for, was kind of like the South longing for the old South that's gone
Yeah.
and gone with the wind. But tomorrow's a new day. I can't believe how quickly it ended like that. Like the guy just dumps her and like, frankly, my dear. I mean, we all knew that phrase. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. But we didn't know it was like a guy dumping a horrible wife to him for most of his life, who just didn't ever appreciate him once.
Like
when all he ever did was try to throw everything at her and give her everything.
Yeah. He's an actual like I don't know. It's such like there's
It's
literally no
wild.
heroes. Yeah, it's such a crazy thing.
Yeah, I
It's like,
know.
on the one hand,
So it's about purity culture.
It's about purity culture, and if she just would have admitted to herself she was a lesbian the whole time, we all would have gotten past that whole
that's
Civil
what
War.
she needed. Yeah.
It would have helped us jump that Civil War.
If only Scarlett and Mammy had gotten together the way history intended them to.
Strangely enough, speaking of that, I was watching on Netflix one of their documentaries about the Boy Scouts and all the people getting raped in the Boy Scouts, and fun watching, I'm telling you. But most of that was like all these different places back in Tennessee or whatever that area where there was one single scout leader going out with the kids. And I was listening to it. I didn't hear like any Mormon stories, and so much of what Mormon stories people want to liken it to is say all that scouting raping happened around here or something like that. But obviously, like I think about the scouting I was around when I grew up, and I never went to any sort of scouting trip that didn't have 5 freaking dads on it.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's
Like
always
I don't.
gobs of dads.
But the guy who John DeLynn had on the other week, he did get molested by a scout leader, but that all happened on their own time. Like he was going over to his house afterwards and stuff. It didn't happen like,
Yeah.
on the scouting trip.
Scouts. Huh. That is interesting.
But I mean, I'd be interested to find out, if you could find out, how many actual Mormon stories of things happening to Mormon boys on Mormon scouting trips, because all the scouting trips I was on were way too buddy systems up for anything like that to ever happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Says Rhett never would have gotten involved in the first place. Yeah. Did you guys listen to this Radiolab Born This Way?
No. Was I supposed to?
Yes. No. Because partially, like right now, I bet you Flip. I don't know if you ever done this, but I mean, we used to like Radiolab because like they do all the good production and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I bet you Flip, if I told you like, tell me what this hour consists of, you could tell me this hour without having listened to it. Right?
Probably a lot of queer theory, a lot of interviews with people.
That comes in at the end. So, and I think they're going to do like a multi-series thing, but they start out talking about all of the legal precedent and all of the different ideas of how they tried to find like a gay gene and then brought in the Born This Way ideas into the legal world. But then it never got fully ratified in the legal world. They never fully said, okay, we agree that it's born this way. And then in the last like 2 minutes of it, they say, that's good, because it's like almost like an hour of the successes of the Born This Way narrative. Just super successful, born this way. And now even most conservatives, if you follow on all the graphs, most conservatives think gay people were born this way, sorts of. And it was such a resounding success. And then right at the last minute, they go, and now it's time to throw it all away because the queer theory, you know. And they really just immediately bring out all this stuff. And of course, because it's Radiolab and they frame it against conservatives, they have all this like scary Ron DeSantis talking in the background, and they don't say gay bill, and how do we deal with these people? And then they go, but maybe those conservatives are right. Maybe some grooming can happen. Right after they just like made like a whole hour long presentation of like, nope, there's, you know, they took the Born This Way side of it. And then right at the very end, they pull the rug out and say, but queer theory is here. And they said it was a lady from the University of Utah that turned it all on its head from some TED Talk in 2017 or something like that, where she throws the entire concept of genetic sexual orientation on its head, and that it's all far more moving parts, and that no, we can't point to anything, and no, we can't say it's born this way, and no, it's never been legalized that way, and that's a good thing because it would harm the marginalized if it ever got put into law. Queer theory. Radiolab was one of the things that first like had me start going like, stuff's getting out of control here. I brought it up before, but there was like this episode years ago where they started talking about a guy who could change gender by the afternoon. And they talked about it all so credulously, like it was a real thing. And at some point I remember, this is back in the day where I was still running around with like a little iPod mini that I'd have to load up my iPods on, all that sort of stuff. And I remember I was out running and I just took my earphones out and just threw the freaking thing. It was like, I'm tired of this. I can't take this anymore. This is such bullcrap. And that was so long ago. You pronounce Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
But this Born This Way episode just came out like last week or something like that. And of course, they're now tossing into doubt the entire concept that even like, you have to admit that this sort of thing announces that conversion therapy might have had legitimacy to it. That's tacitly admitted in this sort of stuff, which is unbelievable, you know. But, and I'm not saying I don't think conversion therapy is a good idea, or, you know, we should all just accept ourselves for what we are and just admit it to as Sam says. But the I think there could be all sorts of dangers and like getting up in your head about thinking that you need to change stuff like that. But these guys going to this realm of queer theory, I think you asked it yourself, Flip, like can't just thinking of queer theory, you have to say that we can't accept any of this stuff as genetically provable. And these guys say right in this, some of those arguments that we were talking about last week that we were having with Seth a little bit, that like if you found a gene, if you found a scientific proof, they will deny it. And they say right in this episode, they say that right for me. They say, we will deny and say, no, we aren't going for your scientific proof if you want to scienticize our sexuality or our identity. We will deny it flatly.
For sure. Cool.
Anyway, that's all that.
You got more fun stuff? I'm also tired. I'm not as tired as Jared was tired, but
I don't have much more fun. Did you see the that Ukrainian spokesperson?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
President Zelensky?
No, did you you haven't seen this?
No.
This is real. This is really real. He got fired this week, but this was, what was he exactly? He was the American Ukrainian
like some czar
ambassador for the war.
Wait, so from the Ukrainian side to America, or
he was American.
He was an American ambassador to the Ukrainian war, and let's see here.
I mean, you can take a guess.
This is real. This is
of the Ukrainian nation's honesty to shine brightly. Next week, the teeth of the Russian devils will gnash ever harder, and their rabid mouths will foam in uncontrollable frenzy as the world will see a favorite Kremlin propagandist.
Looks like a Whitest Kid You Know skit.
And this puppet of
it is, and this is real. This is 100% real. He got fired this week because he was going around and he was making a kill list. Like he put
what?
He put Jack Posobiec and somebody else like on the kill list.
It's like
what?
Like Steve
For really
Buscemi,
real.
Steve Buscemi and Billy
For really
Madison.
real. For really real. He was making a kill
What's
list.
the name?
And then he got fired for it.
Putin
Oh
is
my
only
gosh,
the
dude.
first. Russia's war criminal propagandists will all be hunted down, and justice will be served as we in Ukraine are led on this mission.
Like what sort of Bulgarian hell are we living in for really real? Like with everything going on. Like we are in the upside down. We're in it.
By faith in God, liberty, and complete liberation.
What the hell did I just watch? This wasn't a skit on SNL. It would be far funnier than any SNL skits as of late. But that's a real thing. Now this person has been.
Did you guys watch that Christopher Rufo video I sent?
Yeah, I did, about
That
the
Cluster B.
Cluster B Society.
Yeah. There you have it.
What is that person's name? What is
Can
their
you-
job?
Can you look it up? They got fired from it for making those kill lists just this week, but they were an ambassador. They were like the ambassador to Ukraine, like an official position. It was like an official.
He got memed pretty hard after that too.
Oh yeah, but there's more. I mean, there's more clips than just that clip. There's been a bunch of different clips of that person saying all sorts of wacky stuff and being like all performative about it too, just the same.
That the world has gone mad. Healthy debate has been replaced by activist hysterics. Masculinity is condemned as regressive, while men in skirts and heels are celebrated in the public square. It's as if we're experiencing a society-wide mental breakdown. It's easy to laugh at these outbursts as the ravings of a small but vocal minority, but the compromised health of our body politic is not a trivial concern. A strange new pattern of psychological dysfunction has infiltrated our most prestigious institutions, our corporate bureaucracies, and the highest offices in the land. In short, we're sick. Our society is out of balance. We've been consumed by a cluster of disorder that appeals to our worst instincts and deranges our most important social functions. We need to
I mean, it's true. It's a good little episode about that sort of stuff. But I'd watch the whole
That was
entire
good.
thing put out by Rufo. But I mean, it's just true. It's all of it just feels like we're just sitting here laughing and goofing at at mental illness. You know?
It's weird, man.
He talks about the longhouse.
Remember when Jonathan Peugeot back in like 16 or something, where he was talking about how he never thought that the end of the world would be this funny.
Yeah.
Like
it's so weird.
Just
Everything is so weird.
The strange upside down, and it's like, yeah, it's.
So I watched this whole. Did you guys watch this one too? This is that Evan Sunstone.
I started.
Oh no, I didn't watch this.
This is that Church of Community of Christ guy. It says, I'm joining a church I've never been to, and the whole thing is about queering the whole Mormon space type stuff. I watched that whole one too, right after listening to the Born This Way one, and I think maybe I'm going crazy. Like, for reals, like I'm the Tim Ballard stuff, this crap, and everything. Like, am I even really watching all this, or how is this happening? You know,
pretty crazy.
It's a weird world.
Who? Let's see. Who was it? It was like After School or Academy of Ideas put out that video, just talking about society going, like, continually going, becoming schizophrenic.
Yeah.
This
progressivism will haul out your religion and wear its skin.
Can we say it's a church now? Can we say it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not even. We used to be able to say it's kind of like a church, and substitution theory, all that sorts of stuff, whatever. But now it's just like
entirely a church.
Like we can't even like say it like, hey, this is a pithy comment, or did you ever notice it's kind of it just is now.
Yeah, here they are in church doing church. Craziness.
David Silverman was on Bogosian just last night. Did you see that at all?
No.
David Silverman was the guy who got runned off of the
American
atheist conventions. Yeah.
We lost Kevin.
They might be wrong, or that the other side might be coming from a good place. They can't even go that far.
There he is. And he talks about like his wife and his kids won't talk to him anymore because he's Hitler, because he's not woke. You know.
Jeez.
And it was kind of wild. Yeah, I was only halfway through it a little bit, but that's something to maybe check out too. And I'm winding down on stuff, although I still feel like the Ballard thing. I mean, it's impossible to fully address the Ballard thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I need more data.
Yeah, that's what it is, and nobody has enough data on the whole thing.
I need more dogma.
But like we put on. That was good. But like Kevin put on the front of the thing is, and it was a bit of a Rorschach test. His thing that I had as the thumbnail of tonight is that it's the church got played, but it's still like kind of up in the air of how did they play, or are they playing themselves? I mean, I think Kevin left it to be like a Rorschach.
Yeah,
test.
I did.
He didn't say who was playing who, but
what's so fun? One of the funny things that I've noticed is like you just have like so many unlikely like people attacking each other.
Yeah,
you know, like you just so many weird alliances, Kwaku and Delin, you know, and like just I'm serious. It's like you see people, you know, I was getting attacked by some other believing Mormon, you know, and all this stuff for this. Apparently I was being unfaithful by putting that as a meme, you know. But whatever.
Yeah. Man, I'm gonna have to go watch the Ward Radio thing. They're still going.
Are they?
Should we check in on it for just a second?
Yeah.
Are they? Maybe it's over.
Fireside, where testimony
Maybe it's over. Is that still live? It's still live.
Stories led through divine intervention to the place that this vulnerable citizen needed them in order to be saved and close the case. And they could do nothing other than credit God, you know.
I don't know. It's a big deal because, like I talked about, I have my other friend who it's in her stake that guy, the McConkey guy, is in, and she was kind of generally conservative too. And then she was into, like, she went and saw this movie and all that stuff. And there's this weird little moment where she's just like feeling done, just done. And to think like somebody coming from that kind of, she's got 2 kids on missions from the conservative side and stuff, and she's like, screw all this. I'm done with this. Is just, it's pretty mind-blowing to me. And maybe she's kind of a little too close to all of it, but I can't think she's the only one, just kind of coming from that other direction, being like, what is going on here? What can I even trust in any of this?
In the prayer that they've done. And when you read the interesting cases of everything from remote viewing to
I kind of can't believe they're still going anyway, but I mean, they don't
I
usually
can't
go
believe
that long,
he's
right?
talking about remote viewing like it's a serious thing. But okay.
Yeah, they talk about,
some people might jokingly call telepathy or Star Wars stuff.
Are they
that our
talking about the
government has
psychic
engaged
stuff?
in? There's more there than
he's justifying the Nephi psychic stuff, I'm guessing, right?
I feel comfortable.
I think so, yeah.
As in some atheistic write-off. And if we're talking about saving kids here, I do not slight anybody for wanting to use somebody's alleged or non-alleged gift of sight. And in my speaking with everybody who's dealt with this woman, it seems like she did not seek it out. It was not for any kind of
No, that psychic lady was bullcrap. But even if the guy fully believed it, like, you got to get your head right about that stuff and get away from the psychic freaking charlatan lady. I can't, like,
prideful ends, and
there's not what even in Mormonism, like you're kind of like making an apology right now. But is there anything in Mormonism that says that type of psychic crap is good or real or worth pursuing? Like, if you're supposed to be a Jacob Hansen Mormon, as we say, like the down the line of what we thought is Mormon, are you supposed to be able to believe in psychics who can tap into Nephi to tell you where molested kids are? Like, come on, like that one's no, that's not Mormonism. Mormons should not be apologizing for that, whatever that is. Or
that does kind of raise an interesting thing, though. Like, why are the 3 Nephite stories always like, oh, I needed help changing a tire in the rain, and not I was sexually trafficked by an international cabal of sex traffickers, and the 3 Nephites rescued me? Like,
yeah, this is the kind of stuff where it's like you're opening the Lori Daybell Pandora's box.
There's Forrest, and that's what I would have guessed by Jacob. It's like, come on, no, there's no justifying that psychic Nephi shit. That was stupid shit. That's like the one.
It's like, because it's weird, like, because like that allegation, because like, isn't Tim supposed to be basically an Orthodox Mormon? Because like, and I know like there's a lot of diversity of belief within Mormonism, but like, if you're an Orthodox Mormon, you're not into psychic shit.
Kevin has never once talked to me about going to his psychic to channel Nephi. In all these years we've been talking about Mormon stuff.
That's because I knew you would shun me, Chris.
I've been so accepting of it. No. That one is not one that, like, if there's any part of the whole thing, because like there's enough of the other stuff of like the couple's ruse and all that sorts of deal that I'll hold off to see more claims about that, to see if it really is kind of how Greg frames it, or if they ended up doing something more kind of skeevy inside of all of that. I do think the whole entire concept of going out and drumming up the business is a problem, and at the same time, Zelf on the shelf are a bunch of idiots. Like whatever they think the world is doing to try to get the stuff right isn't what's right, isn't the correct. There aren't experts who are overseeing this and getting the stuff right. But at the same time, whatever these guys are going to do and drum it up, it all just kind of feels like kind of flailing into a nihilistic pit of despair that we can't really help or do anything. If there really are kids getting trafficked anywhere, probably the really sad nihilistic answer of all of it is there ain't shit anybody can do about it. And that's just the.
I mean, something I was thinking about this earlier this week is like, there's the Chinese supermarket in town. It's like a whole Chinese mall. And they just recently got a huge fine for wage violations. And like, you know, and there's like certain restaurants in town, and like just like you put the geography all together, because we know from the news that there's a huge problem with Chinese people being human trafficked as part of like an immigration racket. Now, they have to be somewhere, right? Well, where else would it be other than at this giant mall run entirely by crooked Chinese business owners, employing a whole bunch of Chinese people that don't speak any English? I know, because I've tried to ask them where the raw peanuts are. They don't understand me, and I don't understand them.
So I listen, I forget the name of the channel, but I listen to the channel, these two guys who are very in tune to China, and they both speak Chinese, and they lived in China for years and years, and they talk about the Chinese party and all that sort of stuff. And they had a whole episode recently. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the comments, because I forget the name of these two guys' channel. But they talk about how the underlying seediness of the whole entire culture when they go over there, that there's not anywhere that isn't just overloaded with that option. And it's almost expected and even offered to them anywhere they go, because they're foreign nationals in their city. And it's every city, everywhere. And it's available everywhere, all the time, all throughout China, the whole entire place. And I'll find it, because I'm not telling tales out of school. I will put this one, I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes. But it's people have to understand, like, a little bit from the level of maybe even Tim Ballard or whatever, that I used to joke about some sort of things. It's like you're trying to stop a waterfall with a Dixie cup, you know, and whatever they think they're doing, maybe Zelf and those guys are right, that they're only kind of feeding their own egos of thinking that they're changing or helping or fixing a thing like that. But at the same time too, if they really have that intent or go out into the world and mean to do it and try to do it, if they were dead honest in that whole thing and didn't start getting up in their heads about being saviors or start using it for their own needs, you can't help but say, okay, you know, I can't fault you, even if you're stupid enough to believe that psychic shit and dump money into that. But the flip end of it too is that everybody's just flailing at something that there's no answer for.
Yeah.
And Sam is just as in denial that she thinks the nanny state has experts that's getting this right and that they should leave it to them. That's just as stupid. That's not there, Sam. You know, there's fixing whatever this is, and then saying, oh, you should go fix it in your own community. Like, how?
Yeah.
Like, how does that look? How does that work? Like, say we wanted to start a not-for-profit right now that fixed it in our own community. What do we do? What do we even start? Do we have classes and we put Sam up at the front?
No, we know what to do.
And to not be so toxic and to let
We
their
denounce
free
purity
flag fly.
culture.
They denounce purity culture, and
That's what we do. We stop telling young ladies,
and we need informed professionals.
Well, we stop telling young ladies that your sexuality is precious. Don't give it away cheaply. As soon as we stop doing that, you know, purity culture, then we'll get rid of all the pedophiles, according to Sam.
It's just part of the whole entire thing is if you think about it too hard, you can just go down the road of just feeling complete despair, which I'm sure that guys felt and looked at and stared at in the face a little bit. That's a little bit what that movie's about, right? I mean, I didn't even see the movie, but there are people who actually like looked and witnessed and viewed some of the horrible acts and that sort of stuff. And I can't imagine witnessing and viewing those horrible acts that you wouldn't feel compelled to go try to stop some of it. But if you're somebody who then used it to profit, or I don't know. If they are that, they're the worst thing in the world. I agree with that. And if they were intentionally or even misguidedly really trying to help They just aren't the worst thing in the world. I don't know. And how do we read their hearts? But I guess you can like look at some of the actions, but we just don't know any of the details of any
We
of
can
that.
read their hearts by looking at their indicators of their politics, and by knowing their politics, we know their hearts.
And we know that because they were raised in this purity culture of pedophiles,
they're basically pedophiles.
They're not allowed to be trying to think or worry about any of that. I don't know, man. If I start thinking about it too hard, I'll start feeling overly despaired about it. But
that's why I say Yuri Bezmenov was right.
What's that?
Yuri Bezmenov?
I don't know
Is
that
the feeling of despair? Well, he's the guy, the
he's
KGB dude.
The KGB dude. He said that it was all to demoralize everybody.
Yeah. That North Korea, you saw the interview with the girl from North Korea. That was the what's it, Yamin? I forget her name.
Yeonmi Park.
Yami Park, yeah. Man, it's so much. I wish I could remember the name of that channel. I just pulled it up right now. But they have like a whole episode calling just the seedy truth. And what they talked about is if me, Kevin, and Flip, I mean, they could say that these guys are drumming up business or something like that. But if you listen to this other episode, which I would recommend everybody listen to, God dang it, I wish I could link to it right now. But these guys say that if us three were walking down the
Epic
street,
Times?
No, but they just 3 foreign nationals like us in any city in China, we go into any bar before long that's being offered up to us. And they said they had to actively turn it down. And then sometimes if they were even on like business in China, because there was different businessmen, the different businessmen felt it was part of their duties to go show them that they could get them stuff like that. And would take them down to some sort of seedy place like that and say, is it called China Unscripted? No, that's not these guys. I wish I could. But the thing is, what I'm saying about is like the Zelf on those guys think that like maybe these guys are drumming up extra business. And I'm sure maybe they do or something like that. But if I listen to these other people who really have been in parts of those worlds, and I myself know Mexico City, and I've been in parts that are seedy like Mexico City, and no, they're not just drumming it up. Maybe they are, like maybe some of their little investigations because they wanted to whip people up like it's people going on safari. If that's what they're doing, we're going to find a thing for all of us to go bust like a safari rampage or something like that, which is ridiculous if that's what they're doing. But if you listen to any sort of people who actually do go into these different areas of the world, it's on offer. It's on offer everywhere. And it's not something that they invented.
Yeah.
I think it might have been China Unscripted. I can't remember for sure. I don't know. I could find it if I could look for a second if you guys want to talk for yourselves. But they had like a whole entire just episode that was just talking about, because one of the things that they were talking about is because they get a bunch of Chinese people who listen to them, and actually because there's a certain amount of people from the Chinese government that listen to them, they'll frequently have Chinese nationalists kind of try to rip on them. So they had this whole episode saying like, hey, you guys keep trying to say that it's the US that's degenerate. No, we are not degenerate. You are degenerate. And they had a whole episode dedicated to it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm going to get going regardless.
Yeah, I'm ready to bail out.
It used to be that Thursday was my half day, but now I work until late on
I'm
Tuesday.
ripping and rolling because I'm off all week. But
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I just took the week off because
just for fun.
Yeah. Man, I wish why doesn't it pull a channel that I'm subscribed to that's frequently about China? Yes.
China.
I'm subscribed to 966 channels. How fast would it take me? Yeah,
That's
I'll
too
find
many
it.
channels.
I'll find it and
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
put it
curious
in there.
about it.
But I mean, I think that's something to take into account that most people aren't taking into account with this whole thing. That it is absolutely true that it exists in the world, and it doesn't have to be drummed up. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, like, and that's one of the things that Zelf and John DeLynn and those guys are for sure making the claim that these guys do. And maybe they do, maybe they don't, but all I'm saying is that no, this exists enough in the world that they don't have to. So, but hopefully they aren't people who've really, really, as claimed, taken advantage of it or something. But I don't know. What are your guesses? Everybody just kind of like holds up. I don't. Nobody can
No, I think
like down one way or the other.
I mean, because I read local, national, and international news every day, and like I've never gone on the dark web. I've never been on an onion router. I've never seen anything illegal, but I've explored this topic up till then, and I don't know what to do. Like, I just don't know what to do about it. Like, just read the local news at least once a week somewhere in the state. There was a sting where they do those Chris Hansen style things where, like, oh, I'm going to go online and pretend to be a 13-year-old girl. And it's just like, ding, ding, ding. It's like the South Park did a joke about it. Where it's like, just ding, 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 ding. There's all the people that are ready to go down that road with you. And like, I don't even know what to do. Like, there's a British kid. He got murdered in jail. But he was this British guy that went to Malaysia and molested gajillions of children under the guise of being a Christian missionary. And he apparently, on the dark web anyway, wrote a guide. Like, he published it on the dark web, and it was basically how to go to a shitty third world country and have sex with children by me. Like, that was the guide that he put out there. Like, I don't know what the fuck you do about it. Like, because, the threat of a lifetime in jail isn't enough to dissuade people from doing it. Like, Chris Hansen proves that every week, multiple times.
Some of those guys got caught multiple times. They'd go right back in the street and they'd go right back into it.
No, yeah, that's just it. I mean, because that's the other thing that, like, scares me to death about this. Because, again, like, just read the local news every day. And there's stories about stings at least once a week. And the thing that's terrifying is, like, because you figure, like, well, they're catching these guys at the same rate they're catching speeders or tax cheats, Because, I mean, that's the other big thing about this is, like, how many kids, like, now, kids can't consent, but kids also can make choices. And that's things like, it seems that there's plenty of kids that are willing to go along with this. Like, I don't know what you do about that. I have no idea what you do about it. It's terrifying.
I think I found the guys. It's China Fact Chasers.
Oh.
And
China Fat Chasers.
Fat Chasers.
That's things we won't say his name, but a mutual friend of ours had the most sitcom thing in the world happen. Like, the most Seinfeldian thing happened to him is that his first and last name.com is a Japanese hardcore porn site.
That's really real. Yeah,
it's really, really real. Like, he's just a regular guy.
.com is a Japanese porn site.
And he's just a regular guy with a regular name, but his first name and last name.com is hardcore Japanese porn now.
I was laughing my head off so hard. Like,
yeah. Like I said, like, I just felt like that's exactly like that would happen to Kramer on Seinfeld or something, or Costanza. Like, it's such a sitcom thing to have happen to you, is that your name becomes a Japanese porn site.
Yeah. So I think of these two guys because these guys both like lived there and they went there and they had a bunch of stuff. And I'm trying to find the exact video, but they had like an entire video about the seediness that exists everywhere they went, and they put up with it and dealt with it for 30 years. And they say, if you are somebody like us who goes and deals and works in China, you would need to actively resist it. You need to be telling them, no, 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 I don't want to do this, because they will go and try to give it to you and try to give you those experiences like they think it's expected of them, to show that they're like good business partners with you or something like that, to
Crazy.
take you and show you on the town. And that there's pamphlets and things like, I mean, think of like the pamphlets you get in Vegas or whatever. And they say that it's pamphlets like that on crack. There's stuff all over the walls. There's everything everywhere that you just read and says, I'll find it and I'll link it to here if I find the exact episode. But there it is. Is China the most immoral country on the planet? That's it. I didn't think I'd find it.
We have to.
I'm going to listen to it.
I will put it in the I don't want that to stay in the comments forever, but there you go. That's the one. And that, but I mean, I think it kind of puts into some perspective that, like, obviously just in China alone, they could go have those missions like that forever and ever and not be the ones who are actually creating the business, as Zelf on the Shelf and those guys are trying to. That's one of the keys to their claims of what's bad about it, is they claim that all they are doing is drumming up the actual business. And I can sit and listen to that and think, maybe that's true, or maybe that happened on occasion. Like they talk about the guy who actually touched the girl, that he was sitting there at their place saying, más fresca, I want younger, I want more fresh, or something like that. And maybe those people in that situation were like, well, we don't have more fresh, go grab the chick down the street or something like that. Maybe something like that really does happen in that scenario or something like that. But if you listen to this episode, there would be no end for real options that you're not drumming up if you went and did this in China. And that's just China.
Well,
That's
you got to
just
remember
China.
that, I mean, these are the same people that think that police create crime. That, like, the way you get rid of things like retail theft is to get rid of police.
Yeah, that's 100%. Like you're nailing it on the head, and it's what drives me crazy about listening to them, because they have such that assumption that if all we did is like give up any sort of concept of purity, any sort of concept of porn is bad, that they are pushing on the other side of it. So there's a lot to criticize about Tim Ballard and to question and think if this is good or bad. But those guys on the other side of it are pushing this whole entire concept of the problem's been the purity, the problem's been the people saying beware of porn. The problem has been, like, it's the anti-conservative answer are supposed people who are there to rescue us from this degeneracy of whatever Mormon pedophiles are, and that's the claim they make, and it becomes like such like a weird mirror that they're pointing at each other. But yeah, the answer
all men
is
could be and never would be like Michel Foucault.
Yeah, and I just kind of don't get like where they kind of get off coming off like saying that they have like the proper answer. That stuff is just, and it's because I have the proper answers.
Yeah,
just kidding, I don't. But I mean, I don't know what the
Sam
answer for any of
does.
this is. All I ever get to is I get into a feeling of complete despair about it.
If only we learned to have
I'm leaving you guys off here in a moment of despair. And I think that's all we can pull from this. I think that's what everybody's feeling about it. It's just like,
yeah,
what does anybody do about this? Yeah,
I think like there's that whole Louis C.K. bit about that, where he's like, like, well, if we just made it okay, then the pedophiles wouldn't have to kill the kids. Like, he's got that whole thing. It's like, oh, well, the only reason the pedophile has to kill the kids is because if the kid tells it, he's in trouble. I'm just like, and he's got this Louis C.K. like he says, like, I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying if we were okay with pedophilia, they wouldn't kill the kids. Just what would you rather have? Fucked up, but like,
there's so much of that. But the answer is like Louis gets that that's a joke, and Zelf on the Shelf, they don't get that that's a joke. They think that it's an answer, and that's so much of that kind of George Soros DA side of stuff. Not that I think there's good intentions on any of that side, but there are people who buy into it of just saying that, like, yeah, if we just made it, we got rid of any sort of purity concepts at all and taught kids about their sexuality from age 2 and that they might be gay or transgender or whatever from that age, then we'll solve the world. Like, how do they even pretend to themselves that they've got?
I just imagine like like an elementary school gymnasium filled with the whole student body. And they're like, okay, we're going to talk about sexuality, kids. And then like, okay, everybody, raise your hands if you'd like to go with this guy and learn about sexuality. Who feels ready? You know,
That's
we're not going to invalidate your feelings. So you all go with this guy, and he's going to start telling you about sexuality. Like
that's the feeling of the despair that this leaves me in, is that like I feel like we just have these sides of it, and nobody even yet has the beginning of the start of the answers for this stuff. And all we've done is tried to do it through all history, and we still don't have it figured out at all. You know, but
madness. All righty.
Fun living at the end of the empire, isn't it?
I'm going to think about the Roman Empire at least 6 times before we're on again.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
All
All
right.
right, fellas.
All right.
Later.
See ya.
Bloop.